Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Chilling with Sasquatch, where we're having a slightly different arrangement going on tonight. Give me a I didn't send you a link, did I, Truth? I meant to. I'm sorry. Give me a one in the chat if all the sound is okay, if you heard everything coming in, if you can hear me, that kind of stuff, you know. What's happening, brother? What's going on? I'm using a second camera over here, and I kind of got a little trick I've worked out. It goes a little something like this. Bam. So now my guest can be over. I can be over here with my guest instead of over here dominating the whole feature. You know, we're seriously trying to make it more better all the time. That's the whole point. So I sent out a handful of links. Of course, nobody can tell time, so there's no guarantee anybody will show up. I'm probably never going to figure out which way to look at the camera now because it's actually over here instead of like up there where it's supposed to be. But I'll be fixing that directly, and we'll figure out how to make that work. And oh, cool, that's fantastic. So I don't know, maybe my links didn't work. Last time I tried this, I sent the wrong link to like 12 people because I'm a professional. And I'm a paleontologist. But until we get a response from somebody coming in from my chat or one of my previous emails or Discord, which I think half of those people are actually live currently. So there's that. Hell of a time, huh? Oh, yeah, baby. Workline's been here just about every week, every show for the past 2-3 weeks. I guess he don't got a life or something. I don't know. So the premise here is after tinkering with my sound and getting some things worked out, I'm going to utilize this big screen from my laptop and the sound implements that are functional with it. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can hear all of this. So, like, we'll do this.
That's it.
Well, it sounds like refried trash.
Dude, I say get off the counter. What are you doing?
Is this how you walk your dog when you're holding your leash?
Wait, sound like truth be told.
Terrified of what's going to jump out of the bushes? Well, you're doing it wrong, right?
Okay, well, yeah, you're doing it wrong. That's for sure. So I got one video that I've got picked out that I'm going to sit and watch. I'll be chatting in chat with y'all. I may or may not have my face up on the screen, but I'll be here. No wife. No life. Wives are optional, man. You get a husband. Oh, you get a blow up doll nowadays. It ain't even a big deal. She don't even talk back, and she'll hold your beer for you. Have you dropped your link, Truth? I imagine most people here is already subbed to you, so it's probably not going to do you a whole lot of good, is it? But yeah, I've got about an hour and a half of. Why is that happening? I don't like that. There we go. All right, I got about an hour and a half of Tom painting a painting, or maybe about an hour. I've got a medium-length video on the Hobbit of Flores Island, the miniature person. Where are you at? Right over here, right? Miniature person that they're finding on Flores. I have some TikToks. We're going to kind of scroll through those. Since I gave away the monetization on this video out the gate, I figured I might as well go ahead and, I got to do the sign language. I'm sorry. Or we could say ID. Is that how that works? Give me your ID, sir. Sir, you need to step back on the sidewalk. I need your ID. ID. One of these, you know? Yeah, I kind of look like I had a stroke because I didn't trim my mustache before I come in here. Like this side's just a hair longer, and it's got it like looking like I got having a stroke or something. That's fucking brilliant. Anyway, probably having too much fun with my second camera. That's the most annoying part of it, is I don't know where to look. But yeah, the link's over there. Anybody wants to jump in can. I'm going to start up. I'm going to mute the TikToks, and I'm just kind of scroll through those and try to find some that are interesting. And we'll go back over those at the end of the show, which is not actually a show. We're just chilling. we're gonna check out this video, see what they got to say about it, and yeah, we'll take consider. Uh-oh. What did I do? I'm missing a lot of that. I gotta fix that. Ooh. Oh no. Yeah, I'm probably a little too anal to do this kind of stuff, but that's why everything looks so pretty over there. That's the whole reason why it works. So we're going to start off with the Flores video, which is 9 minutes. I like this video a lot, not because of how pretty it is, which it is done quite well. It's very beautiful. But mostly because it looks into some of the details that you don't always come up. Oh, okay. Some of the details that you don't always come up with when you look at some of your more mainstream type stuff. Yeah, well, I tried being more oral, Mr. Self-Destruction, but she said she didn't like how slimy it was. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe I'm just not good at it. But that's the way that goes. So, skidoo.
Everything has to be properly shored up if you're going to go.
And oh, but how does it sound when I try to talk over them? Is that just ridiculous? Or is that retarded? Yeah, the idea is to try to have a debate format, right? And I'm going to bring some aspect of this into OBS so I can actually mute people. So I'll be bringing them in not on StreamYards. I'll be bringing them into OBS and me into StreamYards with my media into OBS, and then stacking everybody together or however I want to do it, you know, cross, however. And hopefully, when you've got people that are a little too vociferous, perhaps, we can mitigate some of that screaming and yelling over each other that happens. It will eliminate a bunch of people that just won't want to come on because, you know, somebody else controls their volume or their mute button. But quite frankly, I don't see any other way to make for a decent conversation. Hey, Snark and Sass, Mr. Self-Destruction, Work Line, Truth Be Told Audits. Let's go through this. Let's do this. We've got enough, a few minutes under us. I was going to let that play through and then start the discussion afterwards, but let's see who's here. Work Line, first one in, he gets the gold. Mama Gnome gets the silver. And American Justice said Texas gets the bronze, although I swear she was the second one in here. We got Mama Gnome, American Justice, and Work Line, who's apparently high as hell, which I fully approve of. Russell Sperry's here. Good to see you. Truth Be Told, of course, Mr. Self-Destruction. All right, I think I covered everybody. Shari Ives. She comes from one of those creepsy channels over there. And, of course, Snark and Sass. Oh, yeah. Like the girls of Many Nations Hotline. All right, let's let her rock out.
Go down to these sorts of depths. And nobody...
Tell me this, AJ.
What's up?
How do you dig this? How do you like the setup?
I like it a lot better.
Specifically when looking at this particular format.
Yes.
Right. Do I need more room for the chat? Less room for the chat? I feel like it should be just a hair more, like one more line for the chat, but that would put it at almost halfway. And technically, this over here is actually supposed to be like that. But that just looks retarded to me. I don't like it.
Right.
So we're going to balance it out somewhere in the middle there, and then we'll work it out on the other end. The idea being that we could have a discussion. You could bring any links or videos of whatever description from TikTok, Facebook, wherever the hell you want to pull a link from. And we'll be able to put it up on screen, go over whatever video, whatever information. Hell, if you want to bring a law quote up, I can put that up on screen. I just have to know where it's at. I just need the link, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the real issue is this one, right? When I mute you, all you have to do is click the button and unmute yourself, right?
Yeah.
Right. So when you've got people, and I'm not naming names, when you've got certain people who are capable of over talking absolutely anyone else in a room, and they're willing to jack up their microphone and turn up their sensitivity and just yell over anyone else, you have to have a mitigating factor in order to have a conversation. Now, if
Right.
they refuse to talk, I can't help you. But there will at least be a forum where it is possible. At least no one will be talking over you, and you won't be able to talk over anyone else, and that's understood out the gate.
I like that TikTok video.
Yeah, it's cool. It's got, some of these are really neat. Some of them are just absolute cringe. I mean, I don't know what I just saw. That's a pretty pup. But yeah. Hello, Danny Stanton. Welcome to the show. It's not our usual show, but it's a show. We're here. We're relatively androgynous, and get over it. I don't have a chant for that. I'm sorry. I refuse to define myself. I'm not one of those identity politics people. I'm a Sasquatch. I don't identify. In fact, I'm an unidentified.
I don't answer questions.
Damn right. Hey, I got a buddy of mine said, I'm sorry, it took
You can't
a
even.
buddy of mine sent a picture to me of some Dublin cops over here wrestling an alligator out of the middle of the road. And I made a meme. It was like, Georgia Gators be like, I don't answer questions, officer. And he's like squared up against 4 cops, and one of them's got a man catcher on the end of a stick.
That's funny.
We'll see. We'll see. It gave me a huge fight trying to post it for some reason.
Oh, really?
I typed it up, did the meme thing, put the stuff on it, did all that stuff, and went to upload it, went to post it, and it didn't post. So I X'd it out, I redid the whole thing, posted it, and it didn't post. It wasn't scheduled. So finally, I just restarted my phone, and after that, I was able to schedule it up. But I don't know what in the world. It was very disappointing the first 2 times through, because every time I had to redo the edit. I think it might have had something to do with me trying to save it from having to just edit it, like trying to post it
right
directly instead of like saving it
and then posting it
and then moving and coming out of that app and going back in to redo it. I don't know what happened. It was funky. It oh, by the way, the reason I chose this Hobbit video to do has to do with the Goblin portion of the show, right? So we're gonna finish this last 2 minutes of 3 minutes of Hobbit video. Hello, Michelle, and we're gonna discuss the difference between ghosts, hobbits, and interdimensional elves. If we didn't know the difference already, we're gonna talk about it, right? We're trying to hammer a little something down. Hey, strange and unusual, welcome to the show. So, without further ado,
it's distracting.
It is a bit. What part's distracting?
Having the TikTok over here and then what you say. I'm like,
yeah. All right. So here's the thing with that. The idea with that is, all right, it has to do with time management, right? So I can come in and I can do a Sasquatch chills, and then after dark we do a 30-minute whatever, or an hour. And then after that, I could throw down like a little 30-minute short reaction type vid with whoever happens to come in and after dark. And we're all set up over here in the proper little format for that to work out. And in theory, during the show, I should be able to go through and pick out a few TikToks to line up for the reactions. Y'all will have seen them, but not heard them. And then we'll go through and try to find the ones that don't have too much music in them. And that way we could like, I don't know, there's some way that'll freaking work out. It's in my brain. I need it. I need to see it so I can use it to do it. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, for sure.
And that will hopefully that will roll into the ability to tie in the different forms of communication I'm using. So like FaceTime, the Facebook Messenger, the different videos, Zoom calls and stuff like that. I'll be able to bring in guests with different methods. And by doing that, I should be able to control the volume of each guest as they come in and mute them when necessary. And having OBS will let me put a clock on the screen in the middle where everybody can see it so that you get 30 seconds. Oh, crap. I just ruined everything. Where you get 30 seconds to talk, he gets 30 seconds to talk, and then we switch. This is getting great, y'all. I love this. This is going to be awesome. This thing just will not settle. It's still trying to be difficult. So we're going to let it be difficult while I fuck with it. But that's what this is all about. I'm between seasons. I have like 0 content that's not shorts that I'm working on. Actually, Mandatory Carry has requested that I do a lip sync of a specific video. And he sent me the video, and I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, but I was given a moderate amount of creative freedom with it. It has to be a lip sync. I have to be visible, and it's supposed to represent my channel. I do shorts. I don't really have a representation of my channel. I've got this show, which is constantly changing. And then I've got like the Odin Seas thing and a couple of other things I tinkered with that didn't really work. But I figure what's the worst that happens? I get associated with some like odd people, threaten me with a good time. But I think it'll be good. I hate the song. If I could speak openly, I absolutely hate that song. I hate it. I hate it.
Is it a well-known song?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not at liberty to say what song it is, but I absolutely hate it. From the depths of my soul, do I dislike the song? On the screen here, we have an abstract look. This is Tom. His link was pinned all the way up until the show started, and then I pinned the guest link because I'm pretty sure I sent everybody the wrong link because I'm so professional. Pretty sure I sent the wrong link. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I didn't use that one. No.
Yeah, no, you used the one that was in the chat, didn't you?
Yeah.
You used Smart Cookie. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
I like it. I mean, it's going to get used to. It's different for sure.
It is a little different. It's also not quite right. And I will be fiddling with this for the rest of freaking eternity. And there is nothing I can do about it. Let's see. Maybe there's something I can do about it. See, that's just a little bit too much. Right. Yeah. Something along those lines. And you can't even see the difference, can you?
As far as what? There you go.
Like,
there you go.
Okay, so you can see the difference there.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I was just being anal and difficult or what. Okay.
Well, you are anal and difficult, but
I know I am. I'm impossible to deal with and a bit of a perfectionist. It's why I enjoyed making Windows so much. Because you can't fuck that up or it's really fucked up. How you like that intro tune?
I liked it.
You know how hard it was to find the original? Because every time you try to search it on YouTube, it's weird. Once you find it, it'll take you straight to it. But the first half dozen listed in the search algorithm are actually the less than the clean radio version. And while it does flow a little bit better, that one just bumps so freaking hard. I just don't get it. So, all right. Subject topics for the night are pretty outlandish. We have ghosts, goblins, and interdimensional elves. Now, here's my question, like in general. Are ghosts real?
Yes.
Ghosts, goblins, and interdimensional elves. That's the topic. Hey, Mid-South Sasquatch. Hey, ATL. Welcome to the show. George Ward, good to see you. So ghosts are real. Goblins?
I don't know.
Would you like me to define what I would
Yes.
define a goblin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would define a goblin as anything corporeal between a sprite and Bigfoot. A physical entity that you could poke with your finger that does not conform to human standards. So that would include things like gnomes, pixies, sprites, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, any of that stuff, right? Your average wood elves, but not interdimensional elves, those are different.
Mm-hmm.
So, can any of those things listed exist? Is it possible?
Possible.
Okay, so possibly some goblins, right? Interdimensional elves, how do you feel about them?
I have no idea.
No idea. You never watched much Alex Jones?
No.
All right, so have you ever been doing a whole bunch of drugs and met some people that weren't there? And they weren't people, but they were different, but they were obviously people?
Yeah.
Okay, those are interdimensional elves. They're the ones that tell you things.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so now that we've defined what it is we're speaking of, right? Perhaps we can actually have an intelligent conversation on it. ATL, the link's over there if you want to jump in. But I don't know. I sent so many freaking links out. I swear to God, I sent the wrong one. I sent it to my private testing one. I bet you that's what happened. Anyway, so we're going to start with ghosts. And we actually have a couple of ghost hunters that breeze through the chat occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally don't have any problem with the idea that a discorporate spirit might attach itself to some location, object, or place of event. If it was traumatic enough and experienced enough of a emotional or psychic rending of the environment, I believe you could have some type of an effect that would be noticeable by normal people, right?
Right.
I think, well, let me tell you how my mom explained it. Regardless of whether it's the interdimensional elves, angels, demons, ghosts, spirits, or sprites, they are aliens. They're inhuman and cannot think in human parameters. You cannot trust them because they can't use your language properly. They don't understand it the way you do. So you're not speaking the same language, really.
Okay.
Right? So if you're dealing with, like, let's hypothetically, a rendered spirit, a spirit which was once associated with a human being that was generated or imprinted or released or trapped or however it happens into a location, your classic haunting, right? We're talking shadow people, possibly poltergeists, poltergeists. We're talking freaking Slimer for all it matters, right? What the distinction is immaterial, whether it's just a visual or just that creepy feeling, your classic haunting. It's no longer human. While it may have been human once, it no longer is. And yet again, the framework for reference is wrong. You cannot have a conversation. You cannot exchange real information with this individual because they are no longer corporal. They are no longer tied to the framework of our reality. They are beyond that. So whether they're just a copy of something that happened and is being replayed over and over endlessly, or they're an actual incorporeal entity reacting and interacting with the living beings in that space. In neither case are they your Aunt Martha. Possibly an imprint of Aunt Martha, probably an interdimensional being pretending to be Aunt Martha. And what's worse, they may even think and actually believe they are.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you prove they're not? I mean, they wouldn't need but some basic information they could probably suck right out of your brain. Right?
Right.
So if an average con man can stand there and tell you everything you need to know to give him money, why wouldn't an interdimensional intelligence be capable of convincing you that he's Aunt Martha? Never make deals with these things under any circumstances. Especially if you're at a crossroad at midnight, just pass on that shit. Unless you want to learn to play the guitar really good. Right?
Right.
All right. So that brings us to goblins. Ghosts being incorporeal, goblins are the opposite side of the coin. Whether Patriot Defense, what's up, brother? Welcome to the show, man. Keeper of the list. I want Strange and Unusual to get up here and talk publicly, but he's a private individual. He's got halitosis of the scoliosis. That's what that is. All right, so ghosts being the incorporeal and non-interactive entities, goblins represent the physical unknown that physically occupy at least this plane, if not more. So the reason people might not be able to prove Bigfoot exists is because while he does exist, he doesn't exist in this plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's only here occasionally for whatever reason, and otherwise is incorporeal to us, right?
Right.
Much in the way of the Fae and the fairies were depicted in old myth, how they lived parallel to us, but merely a step out of sync so that they were invisible and unyielding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yet again, I reiterate, inhuman, aliens from another dimension, so alien that your thought processes cannot be collated into theirs. The translation doesn't work. It's almost like teaching your dog to growl and moan at you when he wants to go out and say that he's talking. It's like that.
Right.
These are aliens. They're so alien that they may not even understand what it is they're actually saying. They're just mimicking talk so well that it convinces you. So hobbits, gnomes, sprites, fairies, pixies, wood elves, but not interdimensional elves, Bigfoot, Yeti, and not the Caucasian Sasquatch would fall under the goblin type. And these things being largely physical, animate objects, being things that can be poked and touched, that people see and see them interact with the environment, implies that they are a physical anomaly that has either been misunderstood in every case or simply isn't quantifiable by our average modern standards. So yeah, like Mark Hedwig said, he's just a big blurry guy running around in the woods. Not because he's blurry, but because he's like out of phase a bit. He's in phase enough to interact with the environment, but not in phase well enough to be clearly seen. It'd be like chasing the predator through a jungle. Hey, strange and unusual, do you have the fur on your feet? Are you a Hereford? Proud feet. That's how that works. I mean, any of this tickling your pickle? Or
Yeah,
are we just completely
it's
off the reservation?
no, it's an interesting conversation for sure. It puts my thought process in a different perspective.
Right. Well, that's the whole point of these types of discussions is to take a incredulous aspect and give it credulity so that we can discuss it from a rational standpoint. Because if you just sit around with half the people saying, well, it's not true, and the other half going, well, yes, it is, and nobody can really identify what we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to first identify, you have to define the parameters of a discussion before it can make any kind of progress. Okay.
Right.
So, I figure we'll do 3 topics a week until we have most of the weird, really, really weird shit covered. And then when I have empty spots and dates and whatnot, I'll come in and we'll pick one of those in particular to take a really deep dive into. And we'll go look at it, whether it's ghosts, goblins, time travel, AI, whatever.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, no. MVTV lived in a ghost town for like, I don't know, a year or something. And he's got all kinds of pictures from when he stayed up there. It's super cool stuff. He's got books and books. Go dig him up. You can find, you just search his channel. You'll find out who he is. He's over there. For Harry Palms. Oh my God, dude. This is a family friendly show. Oh wait, no, it's not. My bad. We almost went off the rails there for a second. All right, so we're defining the interdimensional elves. So we've defined the incorporeal and the largely corporeal. Now, there may be some overlap in some of this stuff. Yeah, no, you totally need to pack a bowl for this. You might even need a dab because we're going in the weeds. We started in the bush and we're going in the weeds. None of this is going to make sense. Yeah, no, definitely blaze up, smoke them if you got them. So the interdimensional elves have been, debated back and forth for a while. I really like the analogy to the Seelie and Unseelie courts in that they have their own motivations and drives and they expose themselves to people kind of willy-nilly. Typically, it happens during extremely stressful periods where people have apparent psychotic breaks and can suddenly see other entities that are around but apparently aren't around, right? There's points of trauma, of not emotional trauma, but more of a physical trauma where brain injury introduces hallucinations that sometimes seem to have more information than the individual having the hallucinations, which is always very interesting because it implies that either there's something else out there or they have a subconscious capability of acquiring information that they personally aren't aware of. And then you have the drug-induced temporary psychosis of like DMT, ayahuasca, LSD, mescaline, you name your hallucinogen here, just insert hallucinogen. If you're in Florida, you may want to, Flocka. I don't know how that works, but damn it. Government cigarettes, I love them going out. So I would define these as beings being completely discorporate from our perspective and only interactive when in a specific frame of mind. Like the DMT or brain injury or extreme hunger or dehydration or exposure to the elements or traumatic experience of like extremes, psychological trauma can create these breaks in what we would call reality. But some of these individuals are very, very convincing that these things are happening, right? And it's really hard to tell someone who tells you that, something that's happened that there's no possible way for him to know. Right, that's cool, babe. That there's no, peyote. That's right, that's mescaline. Um, there's no possible way of them knowing, and yet because they've been stuck in a hospital bed in here getting like blood drawn off their brain, and yet they know good and well where the kids are, what's going on, why they're there, all that stuff. Things that they shouldn't very well be able to know. And we'll get into outer body experiences in a couple of weeks. That's on the list, but it's further down the list. I figured we'd start with the most outlandish stuff that I could find first, and try to cover it in a very general kind of way, making basic definitions that we could accept, so that a discussion can progress forward. One of the issues I have with the supposed interdimensional elves is they seem to have their own agenda. No matter where you discuss or what source you pull your information about hallucinations that are supposedly imparting information onto people who are hallucinating, there seems to be an agenda in these reports. It seems to be happening like way too often to be just, a random thing. It's not some errant firing of a neuron, because these people reporting these things may not be the most trustworthy people on earth, but they do seem to at least believe what it is they're saying, and they seem to be agreeing on the end result point, being that, like with 007 and Richie Rich, that guy, he's a firm believer in elevating consciousness to a higher wavelength so that we can communicate with these beings and be able to derive, information and advice and, possibly immortality or whatever else, try to ascend to a higher plane. And I don't have anything particularly against that type of, thought process or belief. That's as it may be. I'm more along the lines of constitutional agnostic. I don't care what you believe, just believe it. And if you want to talk about it, we can discuss it. Just don't be trying to make other people believe it. It'll be fine. I mean, you can give them all the information, let them make their choice. Just don't lock them in a cage and cut their head off if they don't buy into what you're trying to sell. Because you can't force people to buy what you're selling. Usually. Well, I mean, unless you're a controlled command economy, and that's worked so well in the past. Jesus. I may have to go back to wearing my headphones just to keep my hair out of my mouth. Okay, I can breathe. I'm a real boy. Now, supposedly, one Mrs. American Hottie will be back here in a minute. So, does chat have any particular questions? Right, exactly, MBTV. I have a family member who occasionally has psychotic breaks. And yeah, he's totally nuts. Like completely bonkers, smearing poop on the wall, batshit crazy. Like worms in his brain, crazy. But every now and then in the middle of the madness, he spouts some true shit, like some honest, real truth that's undeniable, the kind of stuff that you can like leave and go check on it, like text somebody, be like, hey, what the hell are you doing? And he's right. And that has always baffled me. And having seen that type of interaction take place where somebody who has no information on the situation is capable of somehow divining information that wasn't even available to me, and I'm the one in the situation. So I don't know. Hell, maybe somebody told him some shit and he was just trying to get it through to me. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's a weird thing. These interdimensional elves kind of bother me, Let's see who the biggest threat is. Apparently, y'all are most afraid, or at least most threatened by ghosts, with interdimensional elves pulling second and goblins coming in last. You back? No, she's not back. She's never coming back. All right. Now we're going to set up another poll. And while I do that, I'm having some weird echoes happening. What is this? Hold up. I don't get it. It only happens when I touch that window. That's so weird. Man, this freaking computer's possessed. We'll discuss possessed computers next week. LSD started turning to crap in the late 70s. The protagonist of the Interdimensional Elves? Well, I mean, everybody has to have a take a chance of screaming about Russian missiles. Shit. That's not even fake news. Hold up, let me set this back up. What was it? This? No, not that one. This one. Is Harry Nuts still alive? I bet he ain't. No. And I never catch him live. He always goes live right before I do. So, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Let's see. Close that one. Close that one. We're going to close. No, I want to close that one. We're going to open this one. Let's see what somebody else has to say about interdimensional elves specifically. Actually, well, there's a lot of ghost stuff. Mysterious cases of interdimensional travel, parallel universe, creepy stories. I don't want stories. I would like some real, Hey, I know a good one. Hold up. This one's excellent. Have y'all ever heard of the pea green children? All right. Pea green. Oops. I bet it's just green. I bet you. Yeah, the green children found. That's from BuzzFeed. Screw them. Woolpit and my quills. This'll do.
Interested in modeling and acting? Calling all kids and teens.
Watch this. Boom. Ha ha ha. See, that's the beautiful part of that. That took a little bit of doing too. It really did. Strange and unusual. It's kind of odd that you know that.
There is a strange legend that occurred in 12th century England. A humble village by the name of Woolpit, a small rural community that would most assuredly remain in the shadows of irrelevance for its foreseeable future. That is until what has to be one of the oddest encounters in history would take place, forever entangling the village of Woolpit into one of England's oldest and strangest mysteries, the Green Children. A mysterious pair of siblings from obscure origin with green skin, alien-like with an unknown language and a peculiar appetite, who would remain as extended guests in Woolpit. Who were these children? Where were they from? And most importantly, why was their skin green? Well, to answer these questions, first, we have to tell the tale from the beginning. Our story takes place sometime during the 12th century in the village of St. Mary's of the Woolpits, or simply Woolpit. Now, this village, which is still around today, is in East Anglia, or more specifically Suffolk, several miles from a monastery, St. Edmund's. Now, the village's name is derived from the wolf pits that surround it, which were meant to trap wolves that may wander their way into town. Life in Woolpit was quiet and peaceful, but on this particular day, there would be an unmatched level of excitement for an otherwise simple community. It was during harvest time, with villagers setting out to collect the season's spoils, that an odd discovery was made. Emerging from one of the wolf pits and astonishingly looking at the fields were some children. But not just any children, no, these had some otherworldly qualities that quickly set them apart. Their clothes were of an unknown material. Their speech was an unknown language. However, the most remarkable thing was they had green skin. Naturally, the harvesters quickly brought the children into the town to show off the curious discovery. They were brought to the house of a knight, Richard de Calne, where they were sheltered. The children wept continuously even when they were presented with food such as bread, but they refused to eat or even touch the food. This would go on for several days. The children were exhausted, starving, yet they still refused the food offered to them. That is until some beans, fresh from the harvest, were presented. They would quickly indicate their desire for the beans, which were then given to them, though they were disappointed and began crying once more when they discovered that the stalks of the beans were hollow, with no beans inside. A bystander then opened the pods, showing them where the beans actually were, which they quickly snatched up and ate. They would survive for months, strictly on a diet of raw beans. Don't tell Pythagoras. That is until they eventually learned to eat bread and other food. They would also begin to gradually lose their green hue, which was thought to be a result of their new diet. They would also begin to learn English, or at least the English spoken back then. Sometime during this period, the children were also taken to be baptized. Soon after, the younger of the two, the boy, who was depressed and sickly, would die. The girl, however, thrived. She was healthy, she learned English, lost her green color entirely, and was pretty much indistinguishable from the other girls. With her now being able to speak the same language as the village, she would tell of their origins and their home. They came from the land of St. Martin, a subterranean community that the sun does not rise on. Instead, with the light they receive, their days are similar to that of twilight. The land isn't all that different from that of the outside world, aside from everything and everyone being green. They are Christian, have churches, and greatly venerate St. Martin. In the distance, an illuminated land can be seen. However, it is separated from their own land by a great river. As for their reason for being in Woolpit, the children had been tending to their father's flock when they were enamored by a pleasing sound, church bells in the distance, which they would later realize came from the monastery St. Edmund's near Woolpit. Anyways, following the sound, they traveled through a cavern, and when they emerged on the other side, were hit with extreme brightness, an amount of sunlight which they had never seen before, causing them to become disoriented and lost, unable to find their way back to the mouth of the cave from which they had emerged. The boy would die not long after their arrival, while the girl would go on to have a relatively normal life. She was said to be lively. Apparently, she worked in the service of the knight with which they had stayed. She would even go on to marry a man of nobility in the nearby town, King's Lynn, or simply Lynn. At the time the story was recorded, she was said to be living happily. Okay, so let's summarize. Sometime in the 12th century, two children were discovered that spoke an unknown language, had strange clothes, and green skin. They refused to eat anything until presented with raw beans, which they didn't
Sorry,
know
man, I had cops outside my house. I had to go video them.
for some reason. They were from a
Hey, simulate. We'll watch that shit instead.
Dude, if I wasn't there, he was going to take that dude. For real. Then he had backup come and get out of his car like maybe 10 feet from me, trying to intimidate me. It was awesome.
I can't wait. When is it uploading?
It's uploading.
It's uploading now.
I'm uploading it now. I don't edit.
That's my girl. A straight up content whore. I love it. I love it. I'm so proud. All right, I got a. Have you ever heard of the story of the green children?
No.
Okay, so back in like the late 1700s, a couple of kids come wandering out of a field in, I think, France or England. And they were green, and they were wearing clothes nobody had ever seen before. And they wandered out, and after learning enough of the language to be able to speak to the farmers, they told them that, you know, they were real confused because where they were from, like the sunlight was green, and the peas were inside the stalk, not in the pod. And they didn't know how to find the peas, much less. There's a whole bit here. There's a good bit of the video left.
subterranean.
But, they basically had to learn how to be people, right? They had to learn to talk English, and no one could speak the language that they spoke. although they did bring in people from like various countries that it sounded like their language, and they'd show up and go, no, that's nothing I've ever heard. And after we look at this, I got another one. If I can remember the name of the Tuareg, the man from Tuareg, we're going to check it out.
Land
It has a really interdimensional kind of flavor to it too, although it's a bit different. You hear about people going missing, right?
Yeah.
Well, have you ever heard of a person that wasn't missing being found?
No.
That's what we're going to check out next.
called St. Martin, where the most light they receive is twilight. They are Christian and have churches, so they somehow had access to the knowledge of Christianity, though that isn't specified, and for some reason were enamored by church bells. The boy didn't survive, the girl adapted and adapted well, learning English and having a normal life, losing her green skin tone and seemingly never returning to her homeland. So that's all we have from the original sources, though there may be a little more uncovered about this strange tale centuries later, but we'll get to that. Now that story is our best and earliest source of information about the Green Children. It was actually written by two separate scholars in two separate stories. First William of Newburgh in 1189, and then Ralph of Congoshaw in 1220. It's from these two that just about everything we know of the Green Children is derived. There really wouldn't be much more research into the Green Children for many centuries, going a bit under the radar until the 19th century. William of Newburgh's account was published 31 years before Ralph's. However, that doesn't mean they were not written around the same time. They were written years, maybe decades before their publication in their respective books, filled with other various tales and recordings. Regardless, we'll examine William's first. So William himself said that he did not believe the story when he first heard of it, but after he was presented with irrefutable evidence from what he considered reliable, trustworthy sources, he felt he had to record the story, no matter how outlandish it seemed.
Have you ever wondered what would happen if you actually sat
Oh,
down
no, not that.
from the
Anything
Church
like
of
that.
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Screw those people. They all suck anyway.
This discovery, he felt it was miraculous. William considered himself to be particular about his sources, only including what he perceived to be trustworthy, criticizing those that didn't. It seems clear that he believed the story true, at least in origin, perhaps metaphorically or perhaps entirely. William's account seems to be an account
Oh,
from
that's
a
cool.
respected historian who claims himself he did not want to believe the story but felt compelled to. It's probably safe to assume that William never encountered anyone directly involved. It was likely all secondhand sources, of which he claimed there were many. William was far away from Woolpit and had to rely on a plethora of written letters from his various informants. Ralph of Congoshaw was another famed chronicler, known for using direct sources often told to him orally rather than written. Ralph's account, on the other hand, while it first seems like it was based on William's being published decades later, it was more likely written around the same time, if not earlier than William's. Ralph was much closer to Woolpit, and he names a direct source for his claim, Richard de Calme, the knight that sheltered the children. It's possible that neither of these two historians saw the other's work prior. It's also possible that one influenced the other's account, but it is worth noting that the two stories are practically the same. However, they share little to no similarities in the language used. There are also some minor discrepancies. William places it during the reign of King Stephen, 1135 to 1154, while Ralph places it during the reign of his successor, King Henry II, 1154 to 1189. William mentions St. Martin's Land and its Christian culture. Ralph does not. Ralph mentions their journey through the cave to Woolpit. William does not. However, in the basis of the story and many of its details, they are the same. They were taking care of livestock when they were lost, the lack of sun in their homeland, the bells drawing them in, how they would only eat beans yet were confused on how to eat them. They were baptized, the boy died, they learned English, lost their green color. The order's a bit unclear. Regardless, the two are remarkably similar. They don't steal from the other, instead they complement the others with details the other did not include. From William, we learn of their subterranean homeland. From Ralph, we learn more details on what happened to the girl, as he says he frequently...
Yeah, that's the man from Tuareg. He shows up in a freaking TSA somewhere before there was TSA, and he has a whole bunch of identifying things. He's got traveling stickers. He's got a ticket. He's got everything you would need to travel internationally, except it's all wrong. There's no country listed, and the country that is listed is the wrong name for the country he claims to come from, which is some sort of an independent satrap inside of like on the border of France at the time, and Andoria or something like that, Androvia. I can't remember. Anyway, we'll find out in a minute. But it's a super interesting story. It's got a little more coherence to it than most of the people that appear out of thin air, like the guy that got run down in Chicago. Or maybe it was New York. I can't ever remember that crap.
Only heard from Richard de Calne and his family. Now, William wrote much more poetically, figuratively, while Ralph was much more literal. He was fine using the words and phrases of other accounts rather than create his own, which makes it seem like Ralph at least did not know of William's work, as there's no reuse of words and phrases. It also makes sense why Ralph left out probably the most outlandish detail of the story, the name of the land of St. Martin's and many of its characteristics. Still, both of these were willing to write about the supernatural as long as it served a purpose. They both took their credibility and that of fact to be of utmost importance. William says he reluctantly wrote the story, while Ralph directly names his source as Richard de Calne. Now, William places the tale during the reign of King Stephen, so sometime between 1135 and 1154, while Ralph makes no mention. The night, though, Richard is not mentioned in William's account, but was in Ralph's.
Hey, Angel, welcome to the show. Angel Cacique. Yeah, I'm going to ruin that name every single time I try to say it. But I love you all the same, bub. Like a brother and a sister, I swear. Where's my buttons at?
He died in 1188, but it's through Richard that the story is much more believable, as we have a real-life person apparently giving updates on the girl and the situation in Woolpit. Ralph says the girl remained in the service of the knight for years after, becoming loose and wanton in her conduct, but indistinguishable from others in society. Basically, she adapted well. Now, switching back to...
She's one of them chicks where you need her number. Apparently. Loose, lady of the night. The children of the night.
William, we learn that the girl would go on to marry a man in the nearby town of Lynn, and at the time of his writing says she had been living there for years. That's about as far as they go with this. However, through a combination of their stories, we can get a much more fluid narrative. We also know that this story is meant to be perceived as an actual occurrence, even if only by the authors who wanted to doubt its authenticity, and even if it is exaggerated, it is meant to have some meaning, some relevance to history. So once again, we are left with the enigma of the Green Kids and the question of the girl's fate after marrying a man of noble status. Okay, but we don't even know her exact identity, nor her fate. We don't even have a name. Or do we? Like I mentioned earlier, the story of the Green Children of Woolpit wouldn't really be touched on again for many centuries, and it really wasn't the famous oddity it is today until much more recently in history. Now, there's been a lot of research into the validity of the Green Children as well as their existence, but perhaps the most notable new claim that is not a part of the original two accounts is the idea that the girl has been identified. Now, this comes from the research done by author Duncan Lunan, who is known for his work on astronomy and extraterrestrials. According to him, she apparently took the name Agnes Barr, having married a man of noble status in Lynn by the name of Richard Barr, an ambassador to Henry II. They would have a number of children, and from this, Lunan says that the Green Girls, or Agnes's descendants, are still around today. So how valid is this claim? Well, while Lunan did an impressive amount of research, there are some flaws in his claims, complete with timelines and names not adding up, as well as leaps of faith being made. But I'll let you decide for yourself. Regardless, this remains a popular idea. She may or may not have taken the alias Agnes and married Richard Barr, but either way, it doesn't make too much of a difference, as we'll now go over some theories as to what exactly the story of the Green Children is. So all of that doesn't really give us a whole lot to go on, but throughout the centuries, several prominent theories have arisen. There's two ways to really look at this: one as history recorded as fact and meant to be taken literally, or two, as folklore recorded as a symbolic reference meant to be taken metaphorically. We'll start with the more outlandish ones until we get to the more plausible ones. Maybe the most fun theory is if we choose to believe the story at face value, in its entirety. Just bear with me. Let's say it's all true, the greenness of the children, the ever-Twilight-esque homeland. Well, frankly, that'd be one of the greatest discoveries ever made, but one that hasn't been made again since. The idea of a subterranean civilization is far from a new one, even in the 12th century. The theory of there being a hollow earth or Agartha has been around for quite some time, at least in some capacity, being referenced in many ancient writings and folklore, whether it be a religious concept like the underworld or a land of wonder filled with a strange variation of the human race. There is a folklore idea of an underground realm filled with beings such as fairies. Fairies could be known to dwell underground and be associated with nature or with colors such as green. Then perhaps the idea was to mesh together the traditional folklore idea of fairies and a civilization in the inner parts of the earth with that of English history. That fits well with our Green Kids' home of St. Martin's and their appearance, but not really. Why would two separate historians decide to document this tale separately and present it as fact? The Hollow Earth theory has been debunked numerous times, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. For our purposes, though, it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even in the context of the story. How was St. Martin's Christian? Why was such a civilization never discovered? Why did the girl, as far as we know, never attempt to go back? Why was the cave never found? Nor any cave in the area fitting such a description. Another theory involves aliens, but once again lacks evidence. There's really just no evidence to support the idea of the children being otherworldly beings, at least not in reality. Could it be a folktale about such beings? Perhaps, but it doesn't seem like Ralph or William thought so. Still, even at the time, it was thought to be strange and hard to believe, yes, but it was never a widespread mystery, nor one investigated heavily until recently. On the other side, the one that attempts to rationally explain the reason for the story, we have a couple more theories. One theory suggests the story is a reference to the Anglo-Saxon invasion of England, conquering land from the Britons, the Welsh, the Scots, and the Irish. For William, it is the reluctant addition of the Aboriginal inhabitants into the English and Anglo-Saxon history. It's a story of racial differences and their acceptance or denial. William preferred to only record the history of one people, the unified English, but realized against his own beliefs he could not leave out that of others, a glimmer from the past, of the people that came before, whose stories shall not be recorded but yet have a lasting impact. The boy dies because he could not assimilate into the new world, the new culture, as not all communities can be combined and kept both intact. There may be some truth to this idea. William typically wrote things from a unified English approach, not including many ethnic differences. William's account certainly seems much more fantastical than Ralph's, including the concept of St. Martin's Land. The land was pretty different from the world we know, but yet not so different too. They still had one of, if not the most important aspect of a culture that it could share with England, Christianity. While the luminous civilization across the river seems so tantalizing, St. Martin, although seeming like a different world, still had perhaps the most unifying characteristics to make it not all that dissimilar: religion. On opposite sides of the river, one land is bright, the other is dim, yet through God, they are united. As different and alien-like as they may be from one another, there is a unifying ideology. Could the story be a reflection on the idea of cultures from two parts of the world with seemingly nothing in common, but being unified by a common belief? Possibly, there may be something to that, and it may partially tie into this next theory. Still, this doesn't explain why two different respected historians chose to record the story, and why they both seem to have believed it actually occurred, as they have differing and various sources. There's a much more plausible and down-to-earth theory, though, that explains the origins of the Green Children, as well as its significance to be recorded by not one, but two lifelong English chroniclers.
You're ready to start your own business, to turn that passion into a paycheck. All you need is a partner you can trust.
I just want to have YouTube Premium.
There was an influx of Flemish immigrants into England, leaving their native land of Flanders in modern-day Belgium. To say they were not welcomed with open arms would be an understatement. The Flemish would be persecuted during this time in great numbers, during the reign of King Henry II, who was king after King Stephen. So this goes against William's claim that the story took place during Stephen's reign, but supports Ralph's, who seems to place his a couple decades later during the reign of Henry II. Perhaps William made a mistake in his dating. So what you have here is a group of people speaking a language that no one understands, wearing strange clothes, and having a strange culture. Sound familiar? The idea goes that the children were persecuted Flemish immigrants. This theory was championed by author Paul Harris, who believes the story can all be rationally explained. The children were Flemish immigrants who were lost and malnourished. Their language was unknown by the town. They had green sickness or hypochromic anemia, their condition turning their skin green due to malnutrition, with a healthier diet removing the ailment, returning one's skin color. Before, it was assumed their skin was green due to their diet. What about their homeland? Well, there's a town called Fornham St. Martin's near Woolpit. That could explain it. There was also a battle nearby that saw many Flemish killed, the Battle of Fornham in 1173. Perhaps their parents were killed, leaving them orphans. On the surface, this theory definitely seems much more plausible, but it, too, is not without issues. Firstly, green sickness doesn't turn your skin green enough to fit the description.
Yeah, they do. They do, but yeah.
Nourished for a long period of time, and the greenness was greatly exaggerated. It doesn't turn all your skin green, and only in rare, severe forms may change certain areas of the body, like fingers and around the eyes, to an olive color. And if they were so sick, how could they make the journey from St. Martin's to Woolpit? The language they spoke, if they were Flemish, likely would have been recognized by Richard.
Welcome to the show, Toe. I tried to send everybody a link, but I think I sent everybody the wrong link because I'm so professional that I can't even help myself. So what we're doing tonight is we're talking about ghosts, goblins, and interdimensional elves. Currently, we're watching a video on dimensional travel of some description, some unidentified description.
Dacan, who surely would have heard it before, let alone the town, who undoubtedly had encountered Flemish people before. Why, once they learned English, did this not come out? It has its problems, but this theory may be a step in the right direction. Personally, none of these theories are really satisfying. Let's take a step back and look at the basics of the story again. Was this just a folktale made up by the community, or was it actually a historical event? Well, it's possibly both, but what supports the idea of the latter is that it was recorded by two separate historians. Both of these guys like to write about ghosts and different creatures like mermen and vampires, but this one is different, as it is presented as reality. William was reluctant to record it, but must. This was also a time where plagiarism or borrowing sections of another historian's work was commonplace. However, the two accounts make no reference to the other, nor borrow any sections. Yet, albeit with minor differences, they tell a very similar story. This makes it seem like the story was not made up, at least not by Ralph or William, who seem to have believed it. But the entire thing hinges on their word. Still, we can go a bit further. Let's assume we trust them. What about their sources? Well, we know William used a plethora of written sources, but never mentions them. However, we know Ralph's primary source, Richard Dacan and his family, who we got frequent updates about the girl from. Really, the only person we can identify with first-hand direct interactions and contact with the children is Richard Dacan. We really have no reason to doubt nor believe him. It's entirely possible the whole thing was made up or at least exaggerated, although there doesn't seem to be much point in that. And it also makes one question the rest of William's sources. Ralph's source Richard had first-hand experience with the children, yet it's William that goes in-depth about the details of St. Martin. What is it then? Were the green children a real pair of siblings? Was it a local legend, or what? Well, like with many things, the truth can often be found in the middle. Perhaps there were strange children found in Woolpit. Maybe they were Flemish, maybe not. Perhaps their skin color was exaggerated. Perhaps it was a metaphorical analogy of racial differences. When two differing cultures collide, with only Christianity connecting them, the siblings losing their culture and adapting that of the English. The boy was unable to assimilate, to adapt, while the girl did and thrived. Not all can make the adjustment, the swapping of homes, while some can, and can become indistinguishable from others in society. We'll likely never know the true origins of the Green Children, but it'll always be immortalized by its mysterious story. It's important to remember the context of the time it was written. Many of these medieval or ancient mysteries seem so much more outlandish today due to the change in culture. At the time it was written, it really wasn't some popular mystery. It was strange, yes, very strange, but perhaps not some otherworldly mystery that it has now become. People were more prone to believe this type of stuff. The 12th century was a time where many people still believed in folklore, the supernatural. All that stuff could exist, and when juxtaposed to today, did not require the hard evidence provided by science to validate such claims. It was a time where folklore and history were not such a different thing, when folklore was a part of history. The Green Children of Woolpit story was not written to be one of the strangest mysteries to last the ages. It probably wasn't meant to have the impact it now has. It was written at a time where society was much different. It was perhaps written to be taken metaphorically, not so much literally. A song that records not just the history of England, nor the folklore of England, but the assimilation, the loss of culture, and the adaptation to a new world. Still, it may be easy to dismiss the story as a folktale, but there are still lingering questions. Why did two separate historians record it? Why was it presented the way it was? It's what keeps this story so intriguing. Perhaps the best way to view it is as a tale that was exaggerated to serve a historical purpose. A real story of real children morphed into local legends and a chronicalized account. It is still a fascinating tale, though one perhaps not as mysterious as first believed. While the reality of the story likely does not involve a civilization inside the Earth or alien life, that doesn't make it any less important nor any less worthy of retelling. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave your thoughts on what you believe the truth behind the green children is down in the comments. Also, if you're interested in another video about mysterious
Of course, there's no sound because I muted myself so I could cough and not blow out y'all's mic. Thank you, Truth. That's why you should be backstage so you could just point at me and I know. Anyway. All right, so what we've got in choices for the man from Taured, which is another sort of interdimensional kind of story. This, like you've heard stories about people being lost, but you very rarely hear stories about people who weren't lost being found. And that's one of these. Now, the choice we have to make is, do we want to see a short film based off of the man from Taured, or do you want to hear the story itself? Let's see, Infinite Wonder, that's 8 minutes. The infographic show. Oh, they're going to strike me. It's going to be great. I'll just take it down. I don't care. I don't know. What's this guy got to say? 8 minutes, and he's speaking in Hebrew or something. I don't know. What is that, ATL? I have no idea. Pretty sure he's speaking something. All right. How long is that one? You want to give me a time here? 6 minutes? Let's go with the 6 minute one.
Well, the stock is bubbling in the pot.
Absolutely not.
Don't they taste
That's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Yeah, we're really putting my
story about a man.
We're really putting my little overlay thing to a test tonight. Let me tell you, if I don't end up with a claim or a strike or some other something happening on my channel, I'll be absolutely freaking amazed. In theory, it falls under a reaction show, but typically these people immediately try to hit you with a takedown or a strike or something. They get upset when you start using any aspect of their creations. That's why I'm running a whole bunch of TikToks over here too, so they can just all get mad at the same time. That's my plan. Just piss the world off, right? I want y'all to know this. All right. Also, her cat is 17 years old. Oh no.
Man who arrives at a Japanese airport from a country called Taured. Many people have claimed this story to be true, but the biggest...
Oh, by the way, if you haven't tuned in to the Unexplained Mysteries channel, you really should. They've got a lot of really, really cool stories. Most are taken from like historical accounts and whatnot. Some more realistic and real than others, but for the most part, they're as verifiable as you can get, I mean, we are talking about the strange and unusual and the unexplained. So there's not a whole lot of explanation to be had, But you work with what you got. And what they have is a YouTube channel. See, I watched all these like many moons ago. This one itself is not telling me how long ago it was uploaded. I really need to figure out why that is. because it bothers me. But anyway, it's Unexplained Mysteries, The Man from Torad.
Problem seems to lie with Torad itself. Many have pointed out there is no country by the name of Torad, either today or during the purported period of time when the incident took place, in this case the 1950s. But the mysterious man claimed this country had existed for over 1,000 years. This story ends with the man disappearing and leaving no traces. The story of the man from Torad begins in July 1954. On that particular day, a man was said to have arrived at Tokyo International Airport. This man has been described as Caucasian-looking with a beard. While his primary luggage is said to have been French, it's been said that he spoke Japanese and many other languages as well. This sequence of events then differs according to which version of the story you've encountered. In one version, this man hands over his passport to be stamped, and the Japanese immigration officers notice something strange. Whilst the passport looks authentic, the country where it's issued, Torad, was recognized as non-existent, either by the officer or one of their colleagues, indicating that the man should be taken away for interrogation. In another version, the man mentioned that he was from Torad, and when the immigration officer did not believe him, he showed him or her his passport. The next part of the story details the man trying to convince the immigration officers that Torad does exist. According to the traveller, Torad was located between France and Spain, and had by then been in existence for 1,000 years. When shown a map, the man pointed to the area occupied by the Principality of Andorra, and was puzzled as to why his country was called Andorra on the map. The Japanese officers insisted that Torad did not exist, and the traveller argued otherwise. Custom officials found him in possession of money from several different European currencies. His passport had been stamped by many airports around the globe, including previous visits to Tokyo. The company he claimed to work for had no knowledge of him, although he had copious amounts of documentation to prove his point. Eventually, the man was held by the officers, as they were suspicious that he might be some kind of criminal. They brought him to a nearby hotel for the night whilst they conducted their investigation. To ensure that the man did not escape during the night, 2 guards were placed outside his room. The next morning when the officers went to the man's room, they realised that he'd simply vanished, as there were no signs of his escape. Apparently, all of his personal documents, which may serve as evidence for the story's validity, had apparently disappeared as well. This caused a lot of confusion as the police established that he could not have escaped out of the window as the room was several floors up, and there was no balcony. The story of the man from Torad is classified as unresolved for 2 reasons. First, because of the mystery itself, and second, because no one seems to know whether or not the whole thing really happened. One of the most notable explanations for this incident is that the man from Torad had somehow passed through a parallel dimension by accident, and ended up at Tokyo Airport. It's been suggested that based on this explanation, there's a parallel Earth which is similar to ours with the exception that the locations called Andorra here is known as Torad over there. Another explanation is that he was a time traveller. Stephen Hawking has questioned that if time travel is possible, why haven't we met any time travellers? But it misses something. What if we have met time travellers without even knowing it? Or what if we have met them but didn't believe them? Take the mysterious case of Sir Victor Goddard. In 1935, he was flying to Edinburgh from Andover, England, and while on this perfectly ordinary flight, he passed over a neglected airfield in Drem, Scotland. The useless airfield was overgrown with foliage. The hangars were falling apart and cows grazed where planes once parked. He continued on his way until he reached his destination at Edinburgh. A few days later, Goddard began his trip back to Andover. He took the same route which would lead him once again over Drem, but before he could get there he ran into a bizarre storm. Along with high winds and torrential rain, the storm clouds were yellow. It didn't take long for Goddard to become disorientated and lose control of his plane. He tried to regain control by climbing above the yellow clouds, but they seemed to have no end. His plane began to fall. Fortunately for him, that's when something unexpected happened. The clouds broke and he could see the ground again. Off in the distance was the Drem airfield. As he approached the airfield, hoping to reorient himself, suddenly the storm vanished and the sky turned bright and sunny. Everything became clear, but something was different this time. The airfield at Drem was no longer abandoned. In fact, it looked good as new. He could see mechanics down below wearing blue overalls, and 4 planes each painted yellow sat on the runway. One was a model he'd never seen before, a monoplane unlike anything in the Royal Air Force in 1935. RAF mechanics in 1935 wore brown overalls, not blue, and there were no yellow planes to his knowledge. When he finally landed, he couldn't help but tell his friends what had happened. As you'd expect, he was met with skepticism, and afterward he mostly kept the story to himself. In 1939, the vision that Sir Victor Goddard saw at the Drem airfield actually came to pass. The RAF began to paint their training planes yellow. By that year, even the mechanics' overalls had been updated to blue, and of course, the airfield at Drem had made a comeback. Sir Victor Goddard was a senior commander in the Royal Air Force, and many cite his experience as proof of time travel. Surprisingly, misplaced travellers such as the man from Torad have appeared on many occasions. In 1851, a man was found wandering Frankfurt who claimed he was from the country of Laxeria on the continent of Shakria. Another young man who spoke a completely unrecognisable language was caught stealing a loaf of bread in Paris in 1905. He said he was from Lisbia. Finally, it's also entirely possible that this story is merely an urban legend. The story of the man from Torad might not have occurred in the first place, and may have just been the creation of someone's imagination.
An early creepypasta.
So that was the story of the man from Torad. I hope you...
Alright. So do we want to get into the actual... There was a short movie made about it. Are we... Yeah, okay, I'm still... yeah. Where's it at? This. It's 10 minutes and 26 seconds. We've got 30 minutes left. You want to check this out, or we want to just close up shop and go home? Screw this place. I don't know. It's with y'all. I'm going to watch it either way myself because, you know, it's kind of what I do. Watch silly stuff. But, yeah, I'm going to chill for another 30 minutes. We'll sit here and watch it. And after that, I mean, you know, the link's been up there the whole time. I don't know if the poll is covering it up or y'all just hate me, but, you know, either way, even a dislike helps the video. So, you know, do that thing you do when you're doing things you do. I actually haven't seen this one. So we're going to check it out and see what's what.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nick Christensen, and this is the man from Torad. A traveling businessman is detained by airport security, and he discovers that the country that he departed from does not exist. I hope you enjoy it.
Okay. All right. So in the different accounts that you come across about the man from Torad, they're almost all derived from the same batch of like declassified files. And people go at them from different perspectives, trying to either prove, debunk, disprove, try to verify, you know, whatever. But they all go with a particular opinion before they start. Like, I'm going to disprove this man was from another dimension by proving that he was a part of the CIA or somebody screwed up his paperwork or whatever. Could have been a typo for all we know. But what I'm getting at is everybody who looks at this stuff, yeah, man, if you've got signal, hop in. We'll just sit and bullshit about whatever you want to do, whatever you want to talk about. I've pretty well covered the definitions I wanted to cover. I'm more or less just doing what I would ordinarily do, which is watch stupid TikToks and these weird videos that I find. And some of these are really weird. Never seen this one, but if it's done well, it could be a very good story. I've always wanted to see. If you've ever seen the show John Doe, his story is kind of like that. He had knowledge about things that most ordinary people didn't have, and then at the same time, yeah, I know you've been busy, brother. You're also getting over a cold. That's cool. Like he I don't know. He just seemed to be a little too well informed for somebody who'd been on a plane, been on a business trip for 3 weeks. But I don't know. Maybe they were printing that stuff in the papers and he just read it. If he was from another dimension, it seems kind of odd that he would speak English quite fluently, or Japanese perhaps. I don't know what he was speaking, to be honest. That's an interesting question. We should probably look into that one. Hey, MLH. Hey, MLH, what I was wanting was your opinion on this setup arrangement for like a debate concept where I'm coming in on a separate feed with the media and we're able to do like an actual discussion while putting whatever information you bring in. Say, like Axiom's Revolt. He wants to talk about the 14th Amendment. I plan to give him a format that'll let him speak about the 14th Amendment with the information on screen in front of you, and possibly something stupid going on over here in the corner for, me to be entertained with while I'm sitting here listening to this stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, she didn't. You tell her that Daddy's very proud of her. And such a big girl. Hey, I gotta get going. I love you. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Alright, take care. Bye.
Yeah, sure. At least until either my phone goes dead or my laptop, my desktop melts down. It's going to melt down at some point. I don't know why it does it, but that's the idea. Is we'll pick a topic at the top of the show or before the show, and then I'll have some media set up that coincides with the topic that we're supposed to be discussing when you come on. It's not designed to be my usual shield show type setup. It's more of an open discussion format. I'm going to try it with a standard StreamYard setup. And if we get the problem of people unmuting their mic and trying to yell over each other, I've got another format that I'm already working on that should look very much like this, something like this. But I'll have more full control over, the volume of various media. I'll probably be using StreamYard in conjunction with OBS, but streaming on OBS, and I'm not sure how the scheduling works with that. So I haven't figured that part out yet. We're still working. It's a work in progress. We're working on it. We're getting there.
Hey, let me help you. Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, good night, brother.
How was your flight?
It was great. Thank you for asking. Look at Aaron, always trying to be the good guy.
I emailed you the link, and the link's at the top of the, supposed to be pinned to the top. Although,
Sure, it'll be just a moment. No worries.
Excuse me, sir. Will you please come with us?
What's going on?
Sir?
Now, something to keep in mind. This all took place in Japan, and Japan has a little bit of a different cultural method of dealing with people. So you can pretty well bet that it didn't go, "Excuse me, sir." They probably drug his ass in there.
Eric?
Okay, you know what? I gotta go. You have a safe, wonderful rest of your day. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, that's neat.
Is this your passport?
Yes, it appears so.
Where was your passport issued, Hector?
At the National Embassy of Raban. Capital city of Torrid, my home country.
Where are you really from, Hector?
Torrid. Why would I lie?
And you came here directly from Torrid?
Yes, I did.
Okay, can you locate this Tared for us?
There.
You mean the Principality of Andorra?
No. What?
Are you aware that using a false passport to enter the United States is a federal crime?
What's going on?
Take off your jacket. We checked him. He's clean. No drugs, no contraband. Guy may be delusional, but he's not a terrorist.
Okay, well, let me talk to him. Hector, isn't it? I'm Aaron.
What do your men want from me?
Well, they're just trying to do what they can to help protect our country. Sometimes people try to enter this country by pretending to be somebody they're not. So
I'm not an imposter. Look, I've shown you my driver's license, my passport. What more do you want?
Hector, I didn't say you're an imposter. It's just that your country, Tared, doesn't show up on any of our maps. It doesn't even render an internet search. So
I don't understand.
okay, well, Hector, maybe is there somebody we can call to help verify your identity?
My embassy.
Okay, do you know their number? Okay.
I need to call my wife. You know call my wife. I told her I would call when I got here. I told her I would call before she put Maren to bed.
All right, well, hey, call your wife.
We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or call your operator to help you.
That's very disturbing. There's no way that's acceptable. I mean, you try to call home, somebody should ought to answer. Or you should at least have a dial tone or some kind of signal or something.
Let's wait and see tonight. Make sure he's comfortable.
Just wasn't on the map, huh?
No, it was. It was just a different country.
Andorra. It's a tiny little thing between France and Spain. Not even really a country. It's what do you call it? Principality.
Never heard of it. Yeah, none of us had, but it's there.
You have like a passport and everything, huh?
Passport, license, government ID, everything.
Torrid. This man said he was from Torrid, right?
Who told you?
My dad, he used to work at this airport some time ago. He was a passport inspector. He came home one day and he told us about this story about a man who came in from a different country, only this country didn't exist. If I remember right, I'm pretty sure the country that he came from was called Torrid. But this was some time ago. This might be archived maybe back in 1976.
give or take?
I'd like to take a look at that. But first, let's check on our mystery man. Do you think they eat donuts in Tarid?
Man, this is something weird.
I've never seen anything like this before. Well, one thing's for sure, it's definitely above my pay grade.
So, anything new?
Nah, been here all night. I think the poor guy cried himself to sleep.
Really?
What's wrong?
All right, we're gonna let his we're gonna let his credits play out because I like that. That was pretty good. I dug it. Got all the basic information right. I believe the mystery of the man from Torrid has been solved. Yes, no, we're getting to that, Jeffron. Would you like to come up and be slightly insane or majorly insane, or are you drinking? Before you come up, tell me if you're drinking. That's all I want to know. Yeah, that was the next thing we were going to look at after his credits play out. It was we are going to attempt to solve mystery of the man from Torrid. Not really. We're just going to check out what some other people did. Because I haven't seen. Whoop, nope. Negative. We back up one. From Geography Goat. Which one were you thinking about? The man mystery solved expired. See, there's a whole bunch of versions of this story, and they're not all created equal. I mean, some of them are decent. Some of them are more well done, but include less valid information, I guess you could say. There was the one where it said it was solved. Disinfluence. How long is this one? It's long enough to be annoying. I don't like it.
Goes. The year is 1954 in Japan. A man arrives at the Tokyo Haneda airport, and when he gets to the customs and shows his documents, there is something strange about him. According to his passport, the man comes from a country called Torrid, but the problem is that country doesn't exist. The passport seems real. It has stamps from Japan and from other countries as well. The man speaks fluent Japanese and claims that his native language.
That's right.
He seems to be confident, in a rush, and frustrated by the, from his point of view, confusing behavior of the airport staff, who have no idea where his home country is. When no one can figure out where this strange country is supposed to be located, they bring a map, and to their surprise...
All right. For future reference, in case wondering, when Sasquatch talks about the number of darts it takes to get a date, that is a 2-dart date. She's almost a 3-dart date, but not quite. Sasquatch approves.
The man points to Andorra. The staff gets suspicious. The man claims that he is in Tokyo on a business meeting, and that he has a reservation in a hotel in the city. But when the staff tries to confirm that, they find out that no one in the company or in the hotel has ever heard of him. Due to a lack of better options, the stranger is detained and put in the airport hotel for the time being, not allowed to leave his room. However, when the authorities come back for him, he's gone. According to the guards outside the room, no one went in and no one came out. And later, they find out that his documents, including his mysterious passport, have also disappeared. The man is gone, along with all the evidence. and no one has ever seen or heard of him again. The story, which has been repeatedly surfacing on the internet for years, has two most common explanations. The first says that the story is an urban legend, a hoax, something that's completely made up and that never really happened. The second, considerably more imaginative, says that the story is a proof of the multiverse theory, a hypothesis that we live in one of the infinite number of parallel universes, some of it which are almost identical, famously promoted by Stephen Hawking. According to the second explanation, the man was supposed to accidentally
All right, so that reminded me of a joke. How many Democrats does it take to screw in a light bulb? One, but it counts as four and costs $700,000.
transport himself to the Tokyo airport from a different universe, one in which Andorra is really called Torred. While the multiverse explanation was definitely intriguing, the possibility that the entire story never happened was far more likely. There was never any credible documentation of the event, no reports in the contemporary media, anything that could prove that the story has actually happened. How could we know that it was ever more than just a legend? Where did the story first come from? Is there any tangible evidence to it at all? And if it did really happen, could there be other, more realistic explanation to the mystery? For years, no one has been able to answer those questions. That is, until now. The credit for cracking the story and patching all the pieces together goes mostly to Reddit user NalcarJ and several other Redditors. I'm merely documenting their discovery. You can find a link to the original thread and all the Reddit users mentioned in the video description. In 2019, an investigative journalist and a Reddit user under the nick Nathanael Antonioli, who was following the mystery of the man from Torred, was able to track down the earliest reference to the story in a local Canadian newspaper in 1960 and shared it in the Japan subreddit. The newspaper featured a story about a man called John Allen Kuchar Zegras, a con man traveling the world in the 1950s on a fake passport, allegedly issued in the city of Taman Rasset, the capital of a fictional country called Tuareg, a passport that he apparently made himself. According to the newspaper, his journey ended at an airport in Tokyo, where the officials did not buy his story, and he ended up at court. The spelling of the country was slightly different, Tuareg instead of Torred, but apart from that, the newspaper article seemed like the first real piece of historical evidence, suggesting that the story of the man from Torred might be more than just a legend. The journalist, Antonio,
we are giving away this 1970 Dodge Charger at $20,000 in cash.
I don't want you to be annoying. I want you to continue playing the video.
The man from Torred, in records of debates that took place in the British Parliament. The parliamentary archives reveal that the case was mentioned in a debate on travel documents, which took place in the Parliament in the 1960s, the same year that the article in Canadian newspapers was published. In the debate, an MP, Robert Matthew, mentioned a case of a man called John Allen Zegras, who was, according to him, at the time prosecuted in Tokyo. In his speech, the MP said that Zegras traveled the world on a passport.
I don't know, Jeff. How many transgender people does it take to screw in a light bulb? They'd argue over what gender it is before they ever screw it in. That's pretty good, strange and unusual. I like that. Come on, Jeff, don't leave me hanging. You know how much I love a joke. Oh, yes, content. Just stop threatening me, man. This is a microaggression you're perpetrating against me. Don't be that way. I thought you were a better man than that. I thought we loved each other. We have kids, goddammit. You can't be that type of person. You've abandoned all of them. Oh dear. Come on, man. Come on, man. No? I bet he left. He's kind of a prick anyway.
Allegedly issued in Taman Rosette, the capital of the independent sovereign state of Tuareg. When the accused was cross-examined, he said that it was a state of 2 million population, somewhere south of Sahara. This man has been around the world on this passport without hindrance, a passport which, as far as we know, is written in the invented language of an invented country.
Those findings revealed several important things. First, that the story emerged long before the invention of the internet. Of course, it could still be an urban legend, but that would mean that it had stuck around for almost 6 decades. Second, that the story sounds considerably less supernatural, since the mythical man from Torred disappeared while the real one ended up at court. It honestly sounds a bit less like a story of a traveler between universes and a bit more like a story of a con man who was taking advantage of the pre-globalized world where you could still sometimes get away with being from a made-up, non-existent country. And finally, even more importantly, the nameless, mysterious man from Torred suddenly had a name, which meant that the search for original Japanese records of what happened, previously unsuccessful, was now suddenly a lot more likely to succeed. And actually, several months later, the Japan subreddit provided answers.
In November 2020, the Reddit user Tarayochi found the last piece of evidence. Tarayochi somehow found a series of original articles from Japanese newspapers from the early 1960s, which finally gave us the full story of what happened. Translated, they describe a story of a man called John A.K. Ziegler, who flew into Japan from Taiwan with his wife on a forged passport. The passport was apparently recognizable as a fake at a glance, yet somehow the Japanese embassy in Taiwan.
You forgot to include what is it, a societal construct and the words appropriation, and you forgot to make the offending pansexual she-male black she's supposed to be an Eskimo, and also handicapped. So she would be a otherly abled Eskimo transgender black was pansexual with a PhD in interpretive dance and indigenous basket weaving of the San Bush people. See, let me work on that, and I'll get to where I can actually say that crap. I'll tell that joke and catch that strike. I don't think anything would stop it. No one can protect me.
Taiwan stamped him with an entry visa, and Ziegler managed to, unlike in the fictional story, enter the country. However, shortly after entering the country, he was caught stealing from 2 different banks in Tokyo. He was detained, brought to court, where his documents were identified as fake, and sentenced to 1 year of imprisonment. Upon hearing his verdict, Ziegler apparently tried to kill himself with a piece of broken glass that he was hiding in his mouth. At court, Ziegler insisted he is from a non-existing country. However, according to the Japanese articles, few months later, he changed his story and claimed to be born and raised in the United States. Due to the bizarre nature of the court process, the fact that his country of origin remained unknown at the time, and the fact that he successfully managed to travel extensively on a passport from a fictional country, the Japanese media.
Y'all see this TikTok going on in the corner over there? This is the kind of stuff I was looking for. This lady, nice as she may be, appears to, oh, hello, Lord of my own being. How's Lord of my own being? Not sure that's accurate. I'm not sure that's going to work, but we can try to accommodate. But once it becomes a bit, slightly uncomfortable or even moderately difficult, there's this thing called free speech. You cannot compel one's speech. You cannot like it and you can complain about it. Yeah, you might be able to strike my channel, but you can't make me say it. Because I won't. You folks are largely pacifists when it comes to interdimensional beings wanting to take over your existence. I'm actually kind of depressed. I mean, I figured you ought to be much more proactive in the taking out of the interdimensional elves. Figured y'all be all about that shit.
Refer to the case as to the story of the Mystery Man. The Japanese sources never mentioned the name Torad. However, the fictional capital Tamanrasset is a real city in Algeria, a country next to Sahara Desert, in an area with a large population of local Tuareg people. And that's probably where the name Torad came from. The story then made its way out of Japan. Over the years, the details changed, and eventually the bizarre but true story of a conman traveling the world on a fake passport and robbing banks turned into a legend of a man traveling between parallel universes. And the rest is history.
Well, that's neat. That's just as neat as it could be. For the love of bizarre, do I find myself here? Well, thank you. I primarily pride myself on trying to find the slightly unusual and downright baffling. Those green kids have always bothered the living hell out of me. Primarily because, I mean, like you said, they're written about in two separate documents that are 90 years apart in writing and were written 45 miles apart and were documented and kept less than 100 miles apart. So, in my opinion, all of this adds veracity to the concept that something is amiss about those kids. Now, for all we know, they could have been some poor farmer's children who died of a heart attack out in the middle of freaking nowhere. They eventually made their way out of the woods after eating an awful lot of peas. But some of the story just, I don't know, it's real weird. In future Chilling with Sasquatch episodes, we're going to look into things like the berry pickers mysteries. We're going to look at there's this one guy who has this channel. It's amazing. Let's see if I can find him. He is Wendigoon. That's it. If you haven't checked out Wendigoon, if you like weird stories like this, go check out Wendigoon. I can try to drop the link in the chat in a second, but let's see where we at. This guy has some of the best deep dive videos I've found anywhere. And it's not like I guess it's an awful lot like some of the other deep dive type things. But Homecuz will take a straight up 3-hour stint to cover a video, to cover something. It's like the Hypnagogic Archive. If you're not familiar with the Hypnagogic Archive, I stumbled across it back in like 2004 or so. The mention of it, I never could make heads or tails out of it. Was it real? Was it not real? Is it a thing? Is it not a thing? Is it an extra-dimensional video game? I couldn't figure it out. Wendigoon goes through every single frame of every single video they've uploaded in association with the Hypnagogic Archive. And if you don't know what it is, I can't explain it. It's just really out there. But he goes through other stuff too, like the Five Nights at Freddy's VHS tapes and the story in general, the different games. He covers different diseases, just strange and unusual things in general. And it's all done in this, like, I call it an interrupted blog format, where he speaks for a little while and then brings up an overlay and speaks for a little while and brings up an overlay and speaks for a little while and brings up an overlay, which is, pretty cool. I dig it. But he covers things like the what is it? The monuments myth, where supposedly the U.S. made so many monuments and national forests to protect things that are in those locations, not because they wanted a monument there, but because it had to be protected forever. And so they built something you can't even touch on it, So as a cover, sort of. It's all kinds of neat stuff, like SCPs, all kinds of stuff. He's great. And he does a really good job at digging into it too. It's not just a fly by night situation. My man's got 1.26 million subs. He's doing good. I stumbled across him, I don't know, maybe a year ago. And at the time, he was still in the other room, over here. I know. I guess he started making a little money because previously he was in this room here, which is a little different. Or he moved his setup. Anyway, it's a different setup entirely. All right, does anybody else have any suggestions for some weirdness? You know how much we like weirdness. Wendigoon. The name of the channel that I'm talking about is Wendigoon. It's just Wendigoon. Did that not post in chat? Yeah, no, it's right there. That's the link. At least I think it's there. Let me check. Where am I at? Hold up. Over here. Yeah. Okay. Although I do admit that did not pop up in my StreamYards. So tell me this. Can y'all see the link over there? Just right above Lucky Laptop. Right in that gap where I can't quite get it to. Anyway, that's Wendigoon. If you can see the link, I don't know. YouTube may be playing silly buggers. Erwin Saunders. Hypnotic cobcorn. Hypnagogic. All right, so a hypnagogic state is that moment immediately before you go to sleep, but right after you've kind of passed out and you're kind of sort of conscious, but also kind of dreaming. And that is a hypnagogic state. And you can experience it both in the beginnings of sleep, at the ends of sleep, and a very few rare section of the population can experience it during sleep by being awakened but not actually waking up. And it's often referred to as having a witch ride you. Have sleep paralysis is an aspect of it. Alien abduction are often associated with people who experience hypnagogic hallucinations. And the interdimensional elves come back into play on this. People who are out camping and whatnot are sometimes, wow, hey, bro, can I see a little peep at you? Just a little peep. You go back behind your shield after a little look see. See what you look at. Little picture. Some of you flip me off or something, dude. I don't care what you show me. Just show me something that proves you're not a bot or something. That's all I can ask you to do. That'll do. That'll do. All right.
Oh, hang on. Let me edit this. How's it going, everybody? Let me edit my my avatar.
Man. You do that thing that you do so well. We'll even take you out the scene while you do it.
All right.
How long you been around?
Just a few seconds. So.
Okay, so you just walked in on some madness, huh?
I did.
Okay. All right. So what we've been going over tonight is a couple of videos that are largely immaterial to the topic. The topic being elves, like ghost goblins and interdimensional elves.
There we go. I'm good.
To define each. See, like Thursday, I covered AI, time travel, and aliens, right? Defining each and, parameters by which to have a further discussion about them later. We've defined ghosts as being the insubstantial hauntings of the world. Those things that are not human, but may depict humans, but are largely insubstantial to actual humans. Goblins are those cryptids or those things that go bump in the night that do interact with the physical world in a predictable way to an extent. Be that Bigfoot, gnomes, sprites, pixies, wood sprites, whatever you want to call them, right?
The fae folk, the fair people.
Okay, sure. And then we have the interdimensional elves. And these folks are exactly what they sound like, completely alien from this plane and are merely a leak through to people who are either experiencing a psychotic break, experiencing brain trauma, psychological trauma, or experiencing high doses of various types of substances. In all cases, the normal person doesn't perceive these beings or entities, but they seem to have information and they seem to have an agenda.
Now, that is strange because I actually listened to Blair White's and Tim Pool's and Alex Jones's description of them being on whatever psychotic that was, and it was truly reminiscent of Tolkien's elves, these otherworldly beings who, as Joe Rogan said, made it a point to mock him, to tell him he was taking himself too seriously. Like these are ethereal beings. They are not of this world. They are how can we say that the closest thing that we can associate them with is both simultaneously as being angelic and demonic. They have that kind of metaphysical ability of observing you and your mind at the same time. Like they don't perceive you as a physical being. They perceive you as your entire ego. That is how they perceive you, and that is how they judge you. That is how they interact with you. You cannot hide from the elves, and that's what makes them so truly interesting and dynamic. And their nature is hidden because we cannot. There are no rules of conduct interacting with them. Is that follow?
Actually, the way I defined it is this.
Anyone who's tortured by gum disease or tooth decay.
They are so alien that regardless of how you look at them, whether they're goblins, spirits, or interdimensional elves, they are simply not of this world. We are incapable of coming to a conscious decision about a concept because they simply don't think the way we do. They are alien. Just as alien as space people from the other side of the galaxy, completely incomprehensible and apparently multidimensional. So I like where you're going with your ego awareness, that concept.
Yes.
I really dig that.
I don't
Rich
think
would love it too.
Now, I don't think that they are, as you're saying, incomprehensible. I think that they are comprehensible if you had a starting point from which to work
okay, maybe.
with. We don't have that starting point.
Right,
Sorry.
incomprehensible to us because we don't have an understanding that includes them in our framework. It's even difficult to talk about because the words needed to say things about things we don't know what are simply don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can I throw you a curveball?
Let me cover this. My mom
Go
said
ahead.
she always told me that you should never interact with these things, be they spirit, demon, alien, or otherwise, because they are so alien. Whatever you think you understand will be lost in translation. You will always come out on the bad end of it. And they will always screw you over. So just don't do it.
That is correct. and let me throw you a curveball, because we can get into some deep Mormon theology on this subject. Do you mind? Now,
go ahead,
according to Mormon theology, there's demons, angels, all of these things are, for the lack of a better word, celestial or premortal human beings. They are either beings that have not yet come to Earth, or they are beings who, shall we say, lost the privilege of coming to the Earth. So we're talking about beings who...
Hold on. Let me clarify. When you say coming to the Earth, are you speaking of like a pre-existent realm like Sheol?
Yes. I am talking about no, not purgatory. It predates purgatory.
No, not purgatory. Pre-purgatory. A purgatory before the souls have done. Sort of.
No. It's not a purgatory notion. Premortality in the Mormon doctrine, in the Mormon sense, is more of a nursery state where you, as a child of God, were nurtured by God at his feet and learned and observed and even interacted on his behalf to organize the universe. You were a participant. So when we talk about these elves and interdimensional beings, we are talking from a Latter-day Saint perspective, potentially beings who are not outsiders, but beings who exist who exist without the physical form, and whose interactions are not physical, and whose relationship with you is not.
Okay. Let me back up and re-clarify where we're at.
Okay.
You're talking about these incorporeal entities, or are you talking about the interdimensional elves?
I think they're the same. Okay.
All right. We're getting to that part. Let me cover the woolly boogers one more time first. All right. Now I've got a reason why I cut it off, because I saw that was going. I've read a little bit of the Book of Mormon and stuff, and it's weird from a Christian's perspective, but I mean, it's information, and we like information. So,
indeed.
I also had some really cool Mormons that lived next door to me at one time. Two of the coolest guys I ever met. I don't know. Stewie, if you're out there, buddy. But they were on mission, and they helped install my stove and found my D&D collection, and we became instant best buds. It was like magic. Let me tell you, me and my roommate were sitting downstairs smoking on this big old fat stogie, right? Doorbell, there's like 10 of us in the apartment, like 10 of us sitting around just stoking up. Somebody knocks on the door. My bud gets up, runs to the door, looks back at me and says, "The FBI's here." Fuck. I looked out the door. There's two guys, black suits, white shirt, black tie. You know the dress. You know the deal.
And a badge.
Standing there, and I'm like, "You're right. They are feds." So I stepped out the door and shut it. The motherfucker locked it. And I stood there, I was like, "You're gonna have to explain some stuff to me before that door opens. Like, give me a warrant or something." And both of them stuck their hands up and said, "Whoa, no, no, we want to talk to you about Dungeons and Dragons." And I'm like, and the door opened back up.
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
The elders of the faith, sent as representatives of Jesus Christ, had the wherewithal to tell a stoned motherfucker, "We have come to you to speak about Dungeons and Dragons based." I don't know what
Right?
inspiration they were on, but they were on point.
Hey, they might not have converted nobody that day, but they certainly didn't create no enemies. Oh
Well,
God,
their
we had
job
some
was
of
to
the
get in
best
the door,
conversations
and it
too.
worked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they actually got in.
Yes, that
Excellent.
was the objective.
That's how I figured it. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So you were speaking that the interdimensional elves. All right. So I had. All right. I've divided them into three components, right? You have
Mhm.
the non-corporal entities of basic repetitive hauntings and whatnot, right? These scenes that you hear about where
Okay.
the old lady's walking down the road or crossing the road and everybody hits her, but nobody ever actually hits her. Turns out she died in
Okay.
1927 and
Now
still trying to check the mail.
now
That type of stuff.
I do need to clarify this.
Ghosts.
Ghosts are not premortal, and
Right. No.
this is
Right.
this is an important distinction, because when you die and you go to the spirit world, it's said that you go to either a spirit prison or spirit paradise, and the truth is, they're the same place. It's
Right.
your awareness about where you are and what you're supposed to do. Now, when you die, now you hope that there's a period of rest. There isn't. The spirit world after this, before the coming of Christ, is just as confused, fucked up, and shall we say, segmented as the world you live on. There is no clarity. There is no there's no understanding as to what is actually true when you die. It's only after the resurrection that all of that becomes clarified. So,
go ahead.
So things like hauntings from those who have already passed on and lived through a mortal experience, that is not a premortal being. That would never be an interdimensional elf, so to speak.
Right. It's like, that's what I was saying. I was defining the difference between corporal existence versus incorporeal existence, and then the other existence that the quote unquote interdimensional elves occupy. Right. So we have the incorporeal hauntings that are referred to classically as ghosts. It might include a little bit of poltergeist activity, but for the most part, they don't affect the world at all. They run their script, they do their thing. Right. The thing about poltergeist, they don't largely interact with people for the most part. You do come across accounts of them interacting physically with people, but it not only is it extremely rare, it's also very minimalist.
Yes, and poltergeists are such a unique study, because poltergeists are, again, people who have passed on, and they are individuals and people who have become, who have been stripped of all personality. They're no longer a cognizant intelligence. They're just a primal force. And that is an interesting study.
An imprint on the environment due to whatever stressful or like kinetic event took place there, like a psychic event of some sort. It imprinted upon the environment, and when you're talking about like the white lady on the bridge, the white dressed lady on the bridge that everybody sees when they're going by that particular bridge, but she's never there when you get to it. You're talking about an imprint on the environment that plays out like a hologram every so often under the right conditions or whatever. But then you have the other types of like poltergeist. I almost included poltergeist in their own category, right? I was going to bring that in on the tail end as like possibly interdimensional elves that have broken through and lost their way back or something. Right. There's a
No,
couple of ideas.
I'm pretty sure poltergeists are still. Poltergeists seem to be the degeneration of forces like the lady on the bridge. It's
Oh,
just another.
poltergeists seem to have at least a drive. They have an energy to affect the world around them that these images, these other ghosts, these ghosts, actual ghosts, don't have. They can't interact with the physical being under most circumstances. But poltergeists seem to come with a certain amount of animosity. They seem angry that they are no longer whatever they once were.
Yes. And
okay, so let me ask you this: how much poltergeist activity is actually psychic activity from extant humans?
I think it's all human.
You think it's all from living extant humans or past beings that have reached their expiration dates mentally?
Yes, they are past humans. They're dead. They've moved into the spirit world and they are raising their own hell for the rest of us.
Okay, go ahead. Could pick up where you left off. I think we've caught back up to it with a solid understanding of the distinction between poltergeist, ghosts, and interdimensional elves.
Okay, good. So these interdimensional elves, from a latter-day perspective, they're going to be in the mindset, in the developmental stage of a pre-mortal being. Now, whether that is someone who has lost the privilege of ever entering mortality, that would make them a demon, a follower of Lucifer, someone who lost the privilege of ever gaining a body, or they would be the coming generation. They would be someone who has watched over humanity and is trying to do their best to make sure that everything goes the way it's supposed to, or any various job that you could imagine an angel having, these interdimensional beings have participated in. And so
well, that was something I said at the top of the show, that I don't necessarily distinguish the difference between angels, devils, and interdimensional elves. They may all be the same critter.
They are all the same thing. And and it's because you've recognized that these angels and demons have all had these kinds of similar attributes. Yes, they're all the same beings. They're all pre-mortal humans. They're brothers and sisters, or lost brothers and sisters. And that is that's what I love about the faith and the doctrine, is even though those differences are there, the similarities are understood through a theological framing, and that no other faith seems to understand. So, so when we talk about interdimensional elves or the elves, understand that they are beings whose perspective, whose eternal perspective, whether for good or for ill.
When I speak of elves, I speak of interdimensional elves. If I'm speaking of a woodly type of being, a goblin by these definitions,
correct,
a physical being that lives on Earth, I will say wood elves.
Now, do you know the biblical distinction between the interdimensional elves and the goblins?
Are we fixing to go down the Nephilim tract?
Yes and no.
Okay. I'm down.
The Nephilim, from my understanding, were a development from supposedly, human and angel interaction, and it created the giants or the Nephilim.
Right.
But the word that you're actually looking for is a cherubim, and a natural force, a force of nature, a level of intelligence whose function is to manage the forces of the natural world, which, as I'm sure you've already dissected through your own studies, is very distinct from the angels, demons, or interdimensional elves. These are not the same creatures.
Right. I mean, even in the writings, these creatures have opinions.
Yes.
They impart their will upon the world, where in ways that angels and demons simply don't do.
Yes. Now the cherubim are, as in Genesis, they the one given a flaming sword to protect the tree of life.
Right.
Obviously, there are more. Obviously, they have other functions. If you're going to kind of meld this with Native American lore, cherubim inhabit the mountains, the trees, the fields, the plains.
Yeah, they're the
Cherubim, yes,
they're an
and
animate
they also
perspective. Right.
and yeah, correct. The wolf in its primordial form is the cherubim,
Yeah.
and so it,
And hold on. When he speaks about the wolf in the primordial form, he talks about the energy that is wolf. Like,
yes,
as if it were a verb to do wolf. It would be this. It's hard to explain. Y'all have to chew around the edges of that one. Go ahead.
well, and it is interesting because human beings, given the power of dominion over the earth, to change the wolf into whatever form we've deemed worthy, whether it's the pit bull or the poodle. Obviously, these things become separate from the cherubim. They become subservient to man, and so that is also another interesting aspect of the domesticated animals losing their cherubic state almost,
Right.
because they've become
Less
domesticated.
than wild. Less. Yeah, they're domesticated. They're more man than machine now.
They're more machine than cherubim.
Yeah, but you get the reference. You get what I'm trying to
Exactly.
say. They're more man than animal because we've altered them to such an extent that they are completely unnatural. You will not find chicken nuggets ranging across the mats of bananas.
Exactly.
Hey,
Now,
Snark, welcome to the show.
so this is this is really what I have to add when it comes to the elves and the demons and the whole interdimensional beings. My deposit to you is that they are premortal beings, and that's why they're so incomprehensible. The point of view of a human who's destined to see or understand God as the Father and his association and his perspective, for them to stand in your presence because you're on drugs and to judge you for what you're doing, or to kind of like, oh, they
Hey,
can see
man.
us now.
That's one
They're
of the
gonna
things that doesn't seem to really happen that often. While my one experience with interdimensional elves, well, two. One of them, he appeared as a super Smurf, but we'll get to that story one day.
that sounds
But
funny.
the interdimensional, oh, it's great. People love it. Have you ever played the game Chrono Trigger?
Not yet.
Check it out. Check out the intro, and then understand that I was on mushrooms at the time. So it got pretty serious. Anyway, the interdimensional elves seem to simply be, and this isn't going to make any sense, but there's the world and the universe around us, and they were peeping in from between them. Like,
Yes.
I could see them, but I didn't feel like they knew I could see them at first. And then when they realized I could see, or I felt like they realized I could see them, they all looked at me. And that look was terrifying. It was almost an ego death due to observation. I felt the distinct power of being observed by the universe. Something had turned its awareness towards me, and whatever it was beyond the pale. And I stood up from where I was at. I said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a lovely evening. I shall now retire to the West Wing. And I went and laid down in the bed and pretended to sleep until they went away. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's just, I mean, like, I didn't feel like they were judging me. I just felt like they were offended I had seen them. Like, what are you looking at, man?
Well, yes. I mean, you overstepped your bounds. And if you had been any bolder, they would have educated you on the subject, and that is not something you are ready for.
I'm not.
No.
I firmly believe what my mother told me about these things, right? They are so alien and so beyond understanding and so beyond comprehension that any attempt, any belief of understanding you may come to is totally in your head.
Mm-hmm.
It's your own projection onto them.
Yeah.
That they may be so alien that they don't even understand the words they're saying. They just know that repeating these sounds creates that activity. Like a well-trained animal. That's the way my mother explained it to me. And I don't have any reason to. It's good policy, I think.
It's very good policy. And so, once again, just now it's interesting because there are some elves that cannot, shall we say, they can't leave the earth. Whatever influence this earth has, it keeps them here. And so, how do we put this? That there are going to be some elves who are, they're not going to be annoyed that they're being observed because they don't really have a choice.
Right.
The ones who
Your
care
will
about you
has been imparted upon them because you have witnessed them in this state, and they find it offensive.
Now, the ones
How
who
dare
are
you.
offended, now the
Right.
ones who are offended that you can see them are the ones who are not trapped.
Right. No. I did not get the impression they were trapped. I got the impression that they were watching. You remember Clash of the Titans back in the day, the old one?
Yes.
You remember the arena with all the figures? Something like that, except they weren't above us looking down. They were between everything. They were in between what we are. Like our seconds and minutes, our physical components, they were here among us, but beyond the pale. I cannot explain it better than that. I don't know how to get it across. Now, granted, I was on a whole bunch of but that doesn't change the fact that and if they are completely false and the impressions that I got were completely chemical, so be it. No harm, no foul. I don't see a problem there. On the other hand, if there's even a tiny chance that these guys took a look at me, it did change the way I lived my life from that day forward. It was almost a religious experience.
And that's what's so weird, because I've heard that same report from so many other people, and that's why that's why I'm pretty satisfied with the pre-mortal hypothesis, so to speak. So you can take that for what it is. That's pretty much all I got to say on the subject, to be honest.
Completely tapped out.
Oh, I mean, I am simply offering one theological point of view.
Oh, sure.
And one explanation.
I was actually kind of hoping that ATL would come in and cover his side of it. I'm not sure exactly what type of Jewish he is, but I'm pretty sure he's some kind of Jewish.
Actually, I would not mind the Jewish perspective on this one. That would be interesting.
Right? It would be. He also has a fairly eloquent way of dealing with that kind of stuff. You know, he speaks well.
Well, as soon as he comes in, let me know. Is he in chat?
He was in a little while ago, maybe an hour and a half ago. He's East Coast with me, so he's probably. I mean, it's almost 11 o'clock over here now, so he's probably already in bed. He's on some kind of cancer treatment. They got him on chemo.
Oh well, then my thoughts and prayers.
Oh yes, sir.
That is not fun. So,
no good. Yeah.
Best to him and his.
Absolutely.
So, what? Carry on. Carry on with this. This topic.
All right. So, in general, let me get this back right. In general, we have reached a point where we have at least loosely defined to the point of being able to have a discussion, something of an intelligent discussion about it, what the actual the physical definition, the defining characteristics of the various less than corporal spirits, and define the incorporeal as either interdimensional elves or ghosts. The corporal ones are a little harder to chunk away because you're talking about everything from pixies to the Sealy Court to freaking Sasquatch, Bigfoot, house gnomes, anything like that you might come across. Do you remember Officially Forest of Monsters? Did you happen to catch that episode?
I did not. I did not catch that episode at all.
Well, Bigfoot Anon comes on, and he's a Bigfoot hunter in Florida. And he's an actor, a speaker, an orator, right? He narrates books and stuff. You can find him all over the place. Officially Forest of Monsters comes on, and he is a legitimate, no bullshit, has an entire team, several teams in some cases, out tracking down individual sightings of Bigfoot and going back to the locations to find evidence. He has a something like a 60 by 120 shed that he has everything from mock-up Bigfoot traps, castings, maps, locations, everything you could possibly imagine to hunt down Bigfoot. All right, so you get the level of seriousness this man's doing, right?
Yeah.
I asked him if he was looking for Bigfoot specifically, or would he tell people about pixies if he found them? And he got upset. He thought I was messing with him, but I was dead serious. I meant the question as legitimately as possible. You're looking for Bigfoot. All right. Well, the person found penicillin wasn't looking for penicillin. So what if you find a pixie? You know, are you going to come out and try to tell people that you found a pixie, or are you going to pretend that shit just never happened? I'll tell you which way I'd go.
That would be the hardest sell of the century. We sent you out to look for Bigfoot.
What if you had one just right here? Shaking. and you could walk up. What do you do then? Do you just keep him at home, let him go? I'd let him go. I'll be honest with you. I'm not trying to catch no pixie. I've got my own theories about how that would work out because I've read stories about people who caught things like pixies, and it never ended well for them.
Well, okay. When we talk about pixies, what you're actually talking about is a telekinetic gremlin.
Are we back to goblins again?
No.
Yes, pixie. Pixie falls under goblin. Yes.
Yeah, it does. But it's a telekinetic gremlin. Don't take all of the mischief, all of the bullshit, all of the whether it's sweet or whether it's sour. It's a telekinetic gremlin.
Right.
When will that ever end well for anyone?
No, exactly. I mean, even if you go back to the older stories, the old tales, They're always cautionary tales. In every single case, it says very simply, don't fuck with them. Stop it.
Yeah.
In every case, Hansel and Gretel, lost in the woods, tried to get eaten by a witch. They end up in a candy house eating a witch, I suppose. Did they go cannibal? Exactly what happened at the end of that story. Right?
Oh, supposedly, at the end of the story, they tricked the witch into thinking that they never got fat because they ended her sticks instead of their fingers, and they escape and push the witch into her own oven.
Right?
So,
But they pushed her into the own oven. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it ends right after that, don't it?
Yeah.
Does it go further?
It says that they use the breadcrumbs to find their way back home.
I thought the birds ate
do
the
not,
breadcrumbs.
They don't eat the witch. They don't. They just bolt. They just leave.
Yeah, I can't blame them. You know what they should have done? Threw her in the river and see if she floated.
I wouldn't have had the patience. I mean, I think she'd make a better rotisserie first. I mean, does a roasted duck float?
Yeah, no. Officially, Forest of Monsters is deaf. That was one of my most difficult interviews. It was not the easiest thing I've done. I ended up having, like, in some cases, he can read lips pretty well. So I'd bring myself up and let him read my lips. I trim my mustache up real close and stuff, you know. But it's not perfect. And like I said, he thought I was trolling him when I mentioned pixies, but dead seriousness, absolute seriousness. If I find a pixie, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle it, but I'm not going to capture him. That's not in my purview. It's not my bag.
Well, I mean, what if you see pixies and they have these massive Bigfoot like props just to screw with us?
Okay, I'll tell people that, but I'm not trying to catch one. I'm not even trying to take their shit. It's their shit. I don't want it. Tell you, dude, no part of it. I kind of have the same opinion on like physical aliens from other planets, you know, that I don't want to be the one interacting with them, making the decisions that lead to how Earth's going to be dealt with. I might not be the best representative.
Let me just say, if humanity ever took to the stars, and some of us went missing in a particular region of space, and we discovered the sons of bitches who experimented on our kind, there's a reason there's a reason none of these fuckers have made contact.
Oh yeah, it's because there's no intelligent life on Earth. That's what it is.
No, I don't think it's because it's non-intelligent. I think it's because it's malevolent.
Okay. All right, we covered aliens on the last show, but honestly, the interdimensional elves are at least as alien as actual physical aliens from another planet. I don't think anyone would disagree on that point.
I'm sorry,
repeat like, that interdimensional elves are at least as alien as physical aliens from another planet.
I don't know.
Back to that conceptual awareness thing where we can't really define our interactions because we don't know whether they understand what they're saying or they're just saying it to get the proper response out of us. Like training a dog.
Let's see. I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's
kind of what I'm saying.
And now here's here's an interesting topic, because which would be more alien, the aliens or the interdimensional beings watching humanity? Which one would be more alien?
You're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with like the old gods pantheon, like the elders, the outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so like we're talking like some Call of Cthulhu type crap.
Uh-huh.
All right. When I say physical aliens, I'm speaking of nothing more than intelligent creatures from another planet derived from some other chemical soup. Right?
Uh-huh.
When I'm saying extradimensional elves or interdimensional elves, I'm speaking of those that seem to observe but don't typically interact. We can sometimes observe them. When I'm speaking of ghosts, I'm speaking of the largely immaterial that we seem capable of observing but not necessarily interacting with.
Mm-hmm.
I just held my own spit. That sucks. When I'm speaking about goblins, I'm speaking largely of the physical creatures, whether they actually step across dimensions or not, completely immaterial, but they physically interact with the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking about elders, I'm speaking about the people, the creatures, the entities that are staring at the interdimensional elves from between them. You get what I'm saying? Like another tier beyond. What would we define those as?
Give me a minute.
Thank you, Snort. You took up the slack on that. That's awesome. I appreciate that. I don't have my phone. I'm using my phone for a second camera currently, so I can have the whole screen for media. Working on the new format. I'm trying to set it up for you. You'll love this. I'm trying to set it up so that I can let you bring in whatever links and videos and references you want to bring in, and an opposing conversant can bring in whatever references they want to bring in. We can collate them both into the screen in the middle and have us over here on either side having the conversation. And I'm trying to set it up to have a timer set up on the screen and the ability to mute everyone involved. See, in StreamYards right now, if I mute you, you can unmute yourself and just scream if you want to.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to set it up so that we come in on different platforms, basically, and are joined in OBS and then distributed to YouTube through StreamYard, which would allow me to come in with my own sound, y'all to come in with y'all's own sound, and the media to come in with its own sound channel. And everything should run a bit smoother on the receiving end of it. But most importantly, I should be able to set up the timer to unmute you and mute your opponent.
Okay.
And then go the other way so that it's not actually me doing it. It's actually set up to the timer. A true debate.
That would be phenomenal.
Phenomenal!
But back to this question of the elders. But back to the discussion of elders.
Elders.
The tier above the interdimensional elves would be, in my mind, the arch entities of each respective team, whether they're arch demons, whether they're arch angels, the captains, these would be aspects of deity themselves.
Are you speaking of like named entities such as Michael or Gabriel or Lucifer? Or are you speaking of other or possibly brethren semi-deities? Beings that could be God but have yet to notice the prime material, or could be a God if or unrealized deity.
that's an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah.
But for the sake of understanding,
yeah, not everybody's read H.P. Lovecraft.
no, exactly. And here's my basic premise. If we're going to start at the level of H.P. Lovecraft, let me just state for the record that everything that has ever been written, everything that our minds have ever conceived of or written about, whether it's the Dracula, whether it's the Frankenstein, whether it's the Cthulhu's.
Frankenstein's an interesting one. That's a totally different concept from most horror.
Yes. Now, and whether it is the whether it's the alien from the franchise, all of the whether it's the Tyranids, whether it's the Necrons going to Congoshaw.
And for those of y'all who don't know, he just dipped his toe into 40K, Warhammer 40K.
All of these things are reflections of humanity. Now, understand that. Everything that's ever been written, it is a reflection of some human yearning or fear or some manifestation of the human psyche.
Like the primordial condition. The fear of fight, flight, survival, the basis.
Fear of the unknown, fear of, in the case of Frankenstein, the fear of motherhood. All of these things are reflections of humanity. And we can dream up some pretty awful shit.
That's true. I was just fixing to ask. My previous show was about time travel, AI, and aliens, and which was the most existential threat. The general. Okay, what's your opinion?
Name the three again.
Time travel, AI, strong AI, and aliens, like physical from another planet out in space aliens, not interdimensional weirdness.
The strongest threat would be a strong AI.
And that was the generally accepted opinion of everybody in panel. AI is the biggest threat.
And the reason for that is because a strong AI would be literally the absolute worst of humanity taken to its most logical extreme.
Yep.
And every other option is, let me be blunt, I don't think time travel is possible. I don't think, because
the general consensus came down to the belief that any universe that develops time travel would be undone by the invention and use of time travel.
If that's not true, then it's. Let me just put it this way: even theologically, even if we were to suppose that there is an all-powerful being, never once have we seen that all-powerful being utilize the power of time travel. Never.
Right. That's true. That's a pretty good point. ATL tried to bring that up during the show, and I didn't quite catch what he was trying to say. I think that's what he was trying to say.
Understand, the good Lord Omnipotent, whatever force that is, whatever you call it, would rather flood the earth than fix it retroactively through time.
Yeah, apparently. That makes sense. Actually, that's the most coherent argument against time travel in reference to biblical teaching that I've ever heard. Very eloquently put. By the way, you convinced me to try to banish or disband the Department of Education. I cannot. I've been picking at that for 2-3 months now. I can't give you a flat good reason why not. And in fact, the more I think about it, the more I approve of the concept. Let these kids go out and learn some real world skills for 2 or 3 years while we get our shit together and reinitiate something beneficial to the country.
Not only that,
now.
It's not only the concept, it's the tactic. Use the disenfranchised, the victimized, and turn them on their literal oppressors. Tell them, I will free you from the bonds of your enslavement, of your oppressors, and I will cancel all of your student debt on the cost of abolishing the Department of Education.
That's the word I was trying to think of. Abolishing the Department of Education.
Abolish it. Just
that's
get the fuck
epic.
rid of
That's the fucking boss tier thought process there, dude.
So
instead of dismantling it and voting people in from the bottom, which could take 30 years and may never actually work, just chop off the head of the snake. No more snake.
Yeah. Exactly.
Brilliant.
So
you just cut the Gordian knot. Fuck it.
But back to those three options. Time travel, pretty much ruled out. That leaves us with aliens and AI.
Right.
Aliens are too chicken shit to approach us.
Apparently.
And we have encountered them.
They're contagious.
Exactly.
We're like mice. If they fuck with us, every single one of us goes, "Ooh, aliens!" and jumps on the ship.
Exactly.
They're worried we're going to come along like space herpes.
You know, that if aliens are out there and we have interacted with them, they have fucked on off right afterward.
Right? No intelligent life on this planet, Captain. Right. Okay. So what about this? Let me pitch this one. Okay. So hypothetically speaking, we're not from Earth, right? We're from some other planet. We made it here, wherever the hell we're from. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Not part of the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're not from here, and the reason our history is so scrambulated up is because we're not from here, and we showed up with some technology that didn't make it through to today. You know, we reverted all the way back to our primitive nature and reestablished ourselves in a second-tier civilization. Why? Was it a prison planet situation? I kind of feel like it might be. Like maybe we did something naughty that we should not have done in the past, like way past. And they put us here because they don't extinct animals, but they do put them away for safekeeping. Y'all can go live over here. It's good enough for you. The sun burns you and your back will hurt, but you'll be all right. But you can't come play with the big kids anymore because y'all are filthy. Y'all are just rude.
Wow.
That fits all the details. It even matches some of the biblical teachings to an extent.
To a disturbing extent, because
right?
There was... I'm going to tell you a story. You've heard the story of Cain and Abel.
Yes.
So what is disturbing about that story is when God finds that Cain has slain Abel, he doesn't kill him, and Jordan Peterson incorrectly states that God doesn't punish Cain. That is wrong. God does punish Cain. He punishes Cain by removing from Cain his dominions, his powers. He cannot put seed in the ground and yield up fruit from the earth. He cannot farm. And even if he had flocks, he couldn't feed them. And yet Cain went on as the first murderer to build a city, despite the fact that he himself could never ever be an independent being on the earth. That's an interesting.
That would explain why he built the city.
Exactly, because he was the first communist tax collector, and he would show.
I'm sorry, you got me with that one. All right, no, I see it. I see it.
He was the first man to say, "I will kill you. You owe me money." That was Cain's shtick.
That's mafioso.
Now here's the scary thing.
You don't give me your beets and carrots, something bad will happen in this forest.
Now here's the scary thing about the biblical record versus the anthropological record. There is a similar history and power play among human beings that has played out between the Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals. the Neanderthals did not farm. They were
Right.
not self-sufficient. They
Right.
were not, shall we say, human.
Well, yeah, you can say that.
And despite commingling with them, despite interbreeding with them, they died holed up in caves, cannibalizing one another. That was the end of the Neanderthals.
Right.
And if you look at the Curse of Cain and you retroactively kind of understand how that kind of relationship might have played out, it is exactly what we did to the Neanderthals. 100%. We found something that was so evil, so despicable, so incompatible with the rest of our cognitive ability and function. They sealed themselves in caves and ate one another rather than face the wrath of the rest of humanity. Which brings us to another interesting aspect of Cain's curse, which was the mark of Cain. Something that told everyone, don't touch this. The Neanderthals were very unsettling. They did not act, behave, or acclimate or assimilate to human.
The term is alien?
Not alien. It's something that could be human but wasn't.
Right. Well, that was kind of my argument about the interdimensional elves, is like when you perceive them, I don't feel like you're perceiving them as they are. You're perceiving them in the only way your brain can comprehend it, which is people. But people that are not people as we understand. This isn't making a whole lot of sense.
I see some doubt in chat, so give me a second so I can find the Time article that covered the Neanderthal aspect.
Oh, let me. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm gonna go grab your channel link and drop it in chat. So check out what you need to check out. I'm gonna do some of this type of magic. And it's the carnal conservative snark. Right. I was actually wanting your opinion, Mandatory Carrie's opinion, and Mexican Longhair's opinion, and I got those two. Well, I got Mexican Longhairs. I was going to email Mandatory Carrie later, but what do you think about the discussion format concept I was working on? Or is that something that I should put like way more effort into? Or do you reckon the narcissist on YouTube just won't show up because they'll get muted by a clock and not by a person?
I honestly think that is, if you can successfully make that setup, that is a worthwhile endeavor, and I would participate.
Okay. Well, I mean, it would take the muting out of the, it wouldn't be offensive because it wouldn't be me doing it. It would be happening, as a predetermined schedule. That's the premise anyway. That's the idea is, you get a 2-minute intro, you can say whatever the hell you want to, or actually we would probably start with an open discussion for 30 minutes about the topic. And then it would go into a timed format so everybody could get their definitions and their brain wrapped into exactly what it is we're talking about. And then I would step out of the conversation in general, except for trying to clarify things to myself. Hopefully that would clarify things to the viewers too, in theory. So it's not a debate in the classic sense. It's more of a high school style debate with rebuttals. We would I was thinking of flipping a coin to see who goes first on the debate point, and then whoever didn't go first gets the closing statements, something like that.
Got it.
So yeah, I'll hammer that out. I'll get that work somehow. I don't know. I'll figure it out. All right, so the Cardinal Conservative is currently pinned at the top of the chat. And after this broadcast, I will be going through my StreamYard listings and eliminating 30 hours of stuff that's recorded for whatever reason, so I can record more stuff I'm never going to download. What's up, Truth? You got signal? Come on in, man. We're off in the weeds. We're I don't know. I mean, it's up to you, dude. Come on up. We'll throw you a link in chat. You can talk to us. We'll talk about whatever the hell you want to. We're kind of beyond where I was planning on having the show go, but we're still kind of on topic, so it might be a weird conversation.
When isn't it?
If I'm involved, it's probably going to be weird. I don't give a shit what it is. If it's not weird, I'll make it weird absolutely immediately. The very second I realize something normal is happening, I'll make it absolutely weird.
Now, I'm trying to remember who it was, Time Magazine or National Geographic.
I don't trust neither one of those.
Well, this was in like early 2000s.
Which post-apocalypse, Carrie? I mean, are you talking the Bronze Age apocalypse, the biblical apocalypse? Are you talking about the flood? Are you talking about end of the dinosaurs? Are you talking about, I mean, like, you're going to have to give us some kind of quotations on that shit. Like, from to, you know what I'm saying? Like, put us in the ballpark, man. Or the most recent apocalypse, our apocalypse. You can't do post-apocalypse. We're not past it yet. We are apocalyptic, actively apocalyptic, apocalyptic. English is funny. Figure it out.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you're the only one in here but me.
Okay, so I am still looking up this this article.
Okay.
And the best I've found, I don't know what they did with it, but it seems to be kind of scrubbed. I'm looking through the references of what is known as the Cedron Cave, which was a cave in Spain, which...
Yeah, hold on, I got that. Yeah,
which,
I was looking at that shit a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Which actually meshes well with what I had found. And it is a cave where they found a bunch of Neanderthal remains. And they pretty much, as I said, were found sealed in this cave and cannibalizing each other. And I'm trying to find a reference from either Time Magazine or the National Geographic where it talks about the findings in this cave. I just found a video
about something called the Cave Creature of Tennessee. I suddenly want to watch it. Sorry, my bad. I got distracted. It happens.
And what is extremely bizarre is I remember finding this article I graduated in 2006. I was in community college, so we're talking like around 2007, 2008. So this article was published before then. The only article in the references to this cave that I found is a National Geographic from 2017. So that's obviously not it. But I have found the cave.
Do you have the specific name of the cave?
Yeah, I'll put the Wikipedia link in chat.
All right.
In your
yeah.
In your StreamYards. So
that's probably not going to go well. Hold on, let me try that a different way. Just copy link. We'll take it over here, right there. Yeah, I think I actually spelled it right. No, I put an E on it. I had an E behind the yeah. I screwed the pooch on trying to spell it, but hey, I tried.
So yeah, that is the if you could comment that in chat, I'd appreciate it. So yeah, it's not BS. I know what I remember.
There you go. Well, this is good practice.
Well, and I assure you, mandatory, that this material is not contested. No one doubts the findings in that cave.
Neanderthal finds.
Well, no, you can't write
2,500 fossils from hominids.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot. Okay, wait, hold on. The minimum number of individuals is 13, so you're probably looking at somewhere around 50.
Yeah.
So they were washed in, relocated from probably further up in the cave. Just guessing. I don't know the formation of the cave, so stop that. Right. So this implies their craniums closed at a later age, and okay. Anybody not familiar with Massaman should definitely go check out his channel. He does haplogroup research for different, like everything as far as I can tell, every haplogroup in the human blood condition. He's tracked them all to different language areas, and he discusses linguistic and the etymology of words in various languages and the development of the language in the various regions. And one of his favorite subjects is the Bath region. Those crazy Bathists, you know, they've got some really interesting genetics, and he ends up doubling back onto them all the time. Let's see. Let me get that since I've mentioned it.
Why were you searching for Wendigoon?
He's got some great SCP videos, and he covers some deep dives like SCP for one. That's one of my favorites. He also does the hypnagogic tapes, the hypnagogic archives. He does a deep dive into them, and they're current. That's a currently going alternate game. You know. Wow, what's your problem with it?
Oh no, nothing. See, my presumption was that it had actually something to do with Wendigos.
Oh well, that's how I found him.
Okay.
One of my when I was searching around doing one of the shows from the other day, I stumbled across that and I was like, oh yeah, oh wow, Snark is the bestest. I got distracted and she went ahead and linked Snassaman and in the chat. She's great. She's great. She's bucking for Cheese 2.0.
Cheese. Now that's high up in the pecking order.
That is like Cheese Bear is high praise. That's very high praise. Almost a Judd, maybe. Oh. All right. Okay, where were we? What were we? All right, we were talking about elders. Are we going to go down the Elder Street, or are we going to double back onto the ghosts, goblins, and interdimensional elves?
So let's go back a little bit onto the elders. As I was saying before, we're talking about archdemons and archangels. Essentially, we're talking about beings that are not beings that are leaders in the ideas and the machinations of these interdimensional beings. And I wouldn't necessarily call them gods. I wouldn't they are almost okay. So if you could call God like the summation of like the attributes of the universe, if you want to abstract him that way, we're talking about beings like let's go back to Dungeons and Dragons with the Greco-Roman.
Right. That's a much easier template to judge by. So you have the greater gods so to take the Greco-Roman template, you would have a single elder god that was devoured by his children, and the lesser gods became gods by doing so. So Kronos, if that's the one you want to go with, or Tartor, or whichever one you want to name, as the primary elder god, would be analogous to these beings, or would be more analogous
they
to
would, yes. We're talking about
Titans.
Not necessarily Titans. We're talking about the Mars. We're talking about the Aries. We're talking about the Plutos. We're talking about the Venuses, the Mercuries, the lower. They're still grand. They're still grand concepts. They're still forces to be reckoned with, but they are not the Aos. If you understand the D&D reference,
right? Exactly. The All Father is All Father.
Exactly, and yes, there are tiers.
Right. Well, I mean, there would have to be. There would be a pecking order in any society of any sort. The distinguishing difference between the elders, in my opinion, like just my understanding of it. You still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. Everything just blinked for a second. Weird. Anyway, would be the fact that those that you would refer to as the Greco-Roman deities, the Ares, the Mars, those people, would fall under the heading of equivalency of Titan, whereas the elders are outside of that purview and equally powerful. They aren't gods. They're just others. They just don't take interest in human beings at all. They're not pertinent.
Okay. Here's my one issue with that claim. And it's simply this. How the hell would we know?
Right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. What would be, it's like the difference between a 20 megaton versus a 19 megaton. It doesn't fucking matter. You're dead. You're just as freaking dead.
Well, and that's that's another discussion. Is when we talk about scripture and when we talk about deity, to a human, what is the difference between a god and an angel?
Well, a god. Well, the god apparently created the angels. That's the story we're told. A god creates acolytes and followers, or inspires acolytes and followers. I'm not sure. I don't really remember Ares ever actually creating anything.
Now, okay.
That's one thing Jake does stand on, and I haven't been able to disprove him on it.
Well,
gods, plural, gods with an S, little g gods, don't create.
See, now that's a whole other theological.
Right.
For me, that's not a matter of determined reality. For me, that's just a question of time.
Well, and all of that, we're talking about myths and writings. We're not really talking about determined reality either. We're speaking more about.
That's what I want to drag us back down to, is the determinate reality. When we remove all philosophical assumptions about gods and angels, when you meet a god or an angel or the god or one of his angels, in terms of power, what is the difference?
Oh, above a human? Nothing. Immaterial.
Exactly.
The difference between a 19 and a 20 megaton, it doesn't matter. You're just stuck.
And that is the point.
Right.
You as a human, you cannot discern the difference between the power of God and one of his angels. In fact, there are angels who
would
come down and say,
be a direct impartation of that power. So,
oh no, it gets even more convoluted. There are angels who come down and say, I am God, thus saith the Lord. But it's clearly not God himself speaking. That has actually happened. And so we have this this weird almost contradiction, but it isn't really. It's just, if you understand that in terms of authority and in terms of power, there's, to a human, no real difference. I mean, that's why I ask. We assume, or when you say that these elders are outside of that, my question is, okay, how exactly would we know? How exactly?
Hey, I'm sorry, we got Gypsy Auditor UK in here. He's a buddy of ours from over the pond. He's up very late, very late.
Oh yeah, you are. Well, is it late or is it morning?
He is, but it's morning to him by now. He is late 5 hours in the other direction from you.
Yeah.
He's 12 hours beyond you. Yeah, no, I'm in the middle between y'all.
What is it, like 4 a.m. over there?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, you're not for 3 maybe? Been up for a minute.
Yeah, he
may be just waking up.
Yeah, he's having his he's either drinking that herbal water.
It might be a little more nerves in that water. Oh Lord. I appreciate you coming up, man. This has been tons of fun. I actually I'm trying to attain a bit more of a relaxed setting while I'm interacting. So what I'm doing is forcing myself to sit live through long periods of listening to something else to try to temper my need to end the uncomfortable silence as dead air.
Well, let me just say, as a fellow creator, I too appreciate when I can bounce ideas off someone else.
Oh,
It just
I'm
makes
always good.
it just makes the entire experience far more palatable.
Yep.
So,
Gotta
anytime.
be honest, I have infinite respect for the type of stuff that you do because I cannot do that. I cannot sit here and talk into this camera and make any freaking sense. It doesn't. When I listen back to it, I sound like a freaking madman raving into the fucking night, and that's what it is because there's no coherent thought going into it. I'm just talking. When I'm talking to you, I know that I have to watch my freaking words and make sure that they line up with what I'm trying to say. Because you're going to call me the very second they don't. And I totally appreciate that.
Well, hey, I live to serve, so I actually got to get back to homework. So
yeah, man. I wasn't trying to hold you up. In fact, you showed up about when I was about to sign off, and you came in. But I appreciate it. I do. It ain't
I'm
even no
glad
big
for
work.
I'm glad for resurrecting the stream, but now I must take my leave.
I thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Much love, brother. Don't let the man get you down. All right. Hey, mandatory care. You gonna come in here and talk to me backstage when I shut this down? If you're going to, you might want to go ahead and click that button over there and get back here because when I shut it down, I don't know how it's gonna go. And that guy is working on. Ooh, big boy. Is there a particular reason you're doing that? I don't understand. What are you doing? You have a log. Are you going to use that iron chin to cut that log in half? Because, like, Jesus. Yeah, he kind of dipped out by the time the questions popped up, didn't he? That probably doesn't look good. I'm of the opinion, being a constitutional agnostic, that, you know, my consideration of an amoeba living on an ant's antenna that's on that sidewalk out there while I'm walking along is about the same amount of consideration God gives us down here on our little piddly planet. Not the ant. The ant can bite you and give you a little boo-boo. But the amoeba on the paramecium, on the ant's antenna, on the sidewalk out there, walking along, just crush it. Don't even think twice about it. Didn't even realize that happened. Oh, there he goes. About broke that axe. Okay. The what button there? Oh, I'm sorry, dude. My bad. I thought I sent you a link beforehand. I think I sent everybody the wrong link. I sent like 12 people a link, and I think I sent them all all my test stream link because I'm so professional. Oh, Lord. Skadoosh. I appreciate y'all sticking with me. I know this isn't the usual type of thing that I do. There's a bunch of different formats that I came up with when I was playing with OBS to start with. And I showed them to a few people. And out of the 8 or 10 different setups that I had, they're all rough. I haven't really worked any of them out yet. I'm working a couple of them out. I was encouraged to pursue, or perhaps we are a bit of errant dander in the flux and waft of the world. I mean, we're just an errant thought, as you put it, a mistake, a bit of random. Woo. Yeah, free will can be a bit of a bitch because if you're going to discuss free will, inevitably you end up stuck either on one side or the other of it, and you can even fall on both sides given the direction of the questioning. I'm not sure he meant to come back. Let's find out. Is that actually you?
Hello.
Hello. Hey.
Oh, I'm here.
Did you
I
mean to
saw
be
that there
here?
were questions. I saw
Yeah.
that there were questions.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions.
Okay.
Let's see. Where
Lay
we
it
at?
on me.
If you believe God is all knowing and all powerful, why does he let children be slaughtered and raped? I'll throw that up on the screen, although YouTube won't like it a bit.
If I believe God is all knowing and all powerful, I know how to answer this one, but it's no one's gonna like the answer.
No one's gonna
Absolutely no
like
one.
it.
No one.
They're not gonna like it.
Now, I'll be perfectly honest. My faith and my belief in God has absolutely zero to do with his alleged virtues and properties. My belief and faith in God is rooted in that he is my father. That's it. That's all that there needs to be. Either he is my divine celestial father and I am his spirit child, or there is no God. Or if there is a God, I don't know him. So, let's talk about this claim of omnipotence for a moment. When it comes to the alleged omnipotence of God, there are a few translations, most of which it occurs the first time in Revelation, I believe. And the translation for that word omnipotence actually translates again in the Old Testament as Almighty. And the context of that word Almighty is in reference to the power and dominion that King David and King Solomon had over the kingdom of Israel. So, to give this word a modern concept, a modern application, it would be accurate to say that the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America has omnipotence over the United States military. That is the practical application of that word. So, if you believe that God is all-knowing and all-powerful, as the President of the United States is literally, or supposed to be, over the United States military,
maybe not this president.
Again, there's obviously room for error. Is there not? Again, all of these words, all of these ideas, they exist in reality. They're not abstractions. Understand what I'm saying? They're not things that didn't exist in the ether or in the abstract or in the vacuum. So when we talk about this all-knowing God, this all-powerful God, and I'm just like, okay, compared to what else? When we talk about God, we're talking about the creator. We're talking about the person who made the world that is. So whatever powers he has or doesn't have, they're beyond your critique.
Yeah, I suppose you're right on that. That's kind of what I was saying. Is like, I kind of view it as, why would he give a shit in the first place? I don't figure there'd be any error in assuming from, like I said, an amoeba on a paramecium on an amoeba on a ant on the sidewalk out there, and I'm going to go get me some breakfast. Not only do I not give a shit that there's an ant there, I don't give a shit there's an amoeba or an paramecium there, and it's not in the realm of my considerations. I'm just going to get a freaking sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit.
Yes.
So,
but
why would an omnipotent, or even a being that could be mistaken for omnipotent, care?
You see, now
that he'd be an our father type thing, right?
Now, mistaken for omnipotent. That would give the idea that this abstraction of supposed omnipotence even exists. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not a perfect society unless it's a communist utopian society. I've never seen one.
Hey, we're back to the ants again.
Exactly.
It's weird how we keep chasing our tail on that one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of communism.
No one is.
I believe in merit. Sorry, merit. I want the best person to cut my grass. I want the best person to do my heart surgery. I want the best person doing my brain surgery. I don't care what color they are, what language they speak. I don't even necessarily have to communicate with the bastard efficiently. If he's the best in the world, I'll take it.
Yeah. Were there any pertinent questions?
Those were the two that popped up. They popped up just as you was walking out the door.
Okay.
It went to, well, thank you, Workline. I appreciate it. It went to, from the slaughtered and raped children line to basically making basic statements about religion in general. And I like Buddha before he got off that. Isn't that the difference between Asian and Indian Buddha? So, I can't remember. There's something to that. The fat ones are the enlightened Buddha. The skinny ones are the Buddha seeking enlightenment. I can't remember. Is he living on the dew of the universe or some shit? I don't know. Hey, let's shut this thing down. We'll talk backstage. How about that?
All right. Peace out, my dude.
Yeah, brother. Don't let the man get you down. I'm going to hit that button that does those things that, you know, cause the things to happen. And then I'll be able to talk to, let's turn that off before it triggers again. But you know how that goes, because you missed us. And it's not making noises. Why not? Why isn't it making noises? I don't understand. No, it's there. It says it's making noises. Let's see. What's going on in here? Not that filter. I need the other filters. No, that ain't it. I hate it when this type of stuff happens. Because it's like, no, that's correct. That's right. That's right. That's right. Everything's set up right. No, it's not that. That's the problem there. Right.
Mountain, don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. All right, then.